Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to another Reddit Threads video. And today we're getting into some terrifying Reddit threads where I do a deep dive into some crazy Reddit threads I found in some Reddit posts. And the threads I have for you guys today are terrifying, disturbing, and super interesting. So you'll want to stick around. And please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know. And please consider joining the Patreon for $5 a month to get early access videos, uncensored videos, and much more. So please consider that. It's in the pinned comment in the first link in the description. So please consider joining. I'd love to see you over there, but no worries if not. And this will be a long video, so sit back, relax, and let's get into some terrifying Reddit threads. My 31 male girlfriend, who's 29F, has a locked room in her house. I don't know what is in it. Originally posted on April 12th, 2017. The post read as follows. My girlfriend Amy and I have been together for 5 years, and we are planning on moving in together into her home when my lease is up in 2 months. Our relationship is great. We have arguments, but no often, and we always resolve them like rational people. Amy owns a house and she bought it about 10 years ago. The city we live in was depressed for a while. Picture Detroit, but not. Where if you were so inclined, you could buy a big house in a bad neighborhood for a song and dance and then fix it up and hope the neighborhood would come around, which is luckily what happened to her. It's a big old Victorian house with 5 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. Usually we hung out at my apartment since it was near her work and I don't have a car to get out to her place. But some weekends here and there I would spend the night. When my job went removed 5 months ago, I started spending a lot more time at her place. It wasn't until after a month I realized the one room upstairs has a latch with a padlock on it. I thought it was really weird that it was a padlock and not just a door lock. I mentioned it to her, and she just said, "Yeah, I really don't go in that room or use it." What? I mean, I get that it's a big home and she lived in it alone for a long time, so she didn't need the space, but to padlock it like that? I asked her what was in it, and she shrugged and said, "Stuff," like it was no big deal. I asked if we could open it since maybe that would be a good space for my home office, and she said no. Now, I'm really curious, and it's actually sort of eating away at me. I don't care what is in the room. I just honestly don't get why it is padlocked shut. That's weird, right? Am I being unreasonable since I'm moving in? I understand the right to privacy, and I wouldn't snoop. It's on the second floor. I've been sort of paying attention now, if she goes in there or not, and I don't think she ever does. I feel like since I'm moving in, I have a right to know, but do I? I don't want to make her open it, but she's so nonchalant about it and changes the subject that my mind keeps running away with me about what could be in there. I'm just wondering what other people think, what I should do, and if I'm being unreasonable wanting to see/know what it is, this padlocked room, or if I don't have a right to. Our relationship is amazing and perfect except for this one really weird issue. And then some of the top comments were kind of joking around with the OP. Someone even made a joke post saying, number 1, 4 children from her previous marriage that she doesn't want to know about. Number 2, her mother's mummified body. Number 3, she's secretly a slob and that's where she throws all the unwashed dishes and hoarded cat poop. Number 4, 23 cats, no more, no less, and a lot of cat poop. 5, all of her previous boyfriends and 2 ex-husbands who mysteriously disappeared. 6, her collection of fingers, they no longer fing. 7, a horse, that's why you hear those noises at night, the sound of distant nickering. 8, marijuana farm. 9, Dracula. And then someone else comments, replied to that comment saying, 10, satanic altar. 11, freaky dungeon. 12, trafficked people. 13, portal to another dimension. 14, the TARDIS. And then someone comments, that room is huge on the inside. Plenty of room for all the bodies. And then the OP replies to this thread saying, cats sent me into an almost dying asthma attack, so I think if there was 23 of them, I would know. The marijuana farm is very unlikely. She's in law enforcement, LOL. Someone else says, maybe it's her clutter room, like Monica has from Friends. Another commenter says, this is straight out of a horror movie. You've been together 5 years. Some ominous locked room in the house you plan to move into is a huge fucking no-no. You do have a right to know since you're moving in. Weird, creepy secrets should not be a thing in relationships. Tell her it makes you uncomfortable and you'd like to know what's in that room before you move in. And then the OP replies to that comment saying, "That's a good way to phrase it, about it making me uncomfortable." Hopefully she knows I mean it. I'm really big on privacy and respecting privacy boundaries, but this really is just driving me up a wall. Another commenter says, "And while I know you two are big on privacy, you have to come back with an update on what's in the room. We need to know, unless you end up getting murdered by the clown dolls from a burned down children's hospital that are locked inside." And then the OP replies to that comment saying, "Oh God, I didn't even consider clowns. I will absolutely give an update either way. She's working in overnight tonight, so I will talk to her tomorrow." And then another commenter says, "I'm enjoying this thread so much. On a serious note though, has your girlfriend experienced any serious trauma that you're aware of?" I ask because I also had a never go in that room. Last year, my daughter almost died in her bedroom. It was a CPR and defibrillator and ambulances and a world-class children's hospital involved level incident. She's okay now, but I couldn't stay in that house again. We moved out a week later, and every time we went back to pack, I had to have my husband deal with her room, with the door closed. Just too many horrifying memories. Like I said, I know it's a stretch, but is it possible that something like that could have happened? And then the OP replies to that comment saying, "Wow, that must have been so scary. I'm glad your daughter is okay. As far as I know, there's been no trauma. But after 5 years, I would have thought I would have heard about it by now. Unless she decided to not tell me, which I would respect if it was that traumatic." And then the OP posted an update on April 15th, 2017, which was 3 days later after the original post. The post read as follows. "Here is my update. I never did figure out how to post it. Hello Reddit. I promised an update to my prior post in this sub. Sorry for no link. I'm on mobile, so not sure how to link it, but if you look in my post history, it's the only one on there. I would have posted early, but I needed some time to digest things. I had a long talk with my girlfriend when she got home from work in the morning about the locked room. She tried to blow it off a few times and get off the conversation until I told her I couldn't move in until she told me what was in the room and I saw it for myself. I told her I didn't care what was in there. After posting here, I was more and more convinced that it was probably guns or something related to her work in law enforcement, as that really did make a lot of sense. Eventually, she just broke down sobbing. Big, giant, ugly sobs like I've never seen before. It was pretty shocking. She's not really a crier. It took a good 15 minutes before she could even start forming words that I could understand between giant sobs. It was absolutely heartbreaking to see, and I knew as soon as she started crying that it wasn't a room full of guns or work stuff. Actually, the room is empty. There is nothing in there. Someone had surmised in the comments of the other posts that maybe there was some trauma. I forgot who it was, but unfortunately, they were correct. She was basically a kid at 19 when she bought the house. Like I said, bad neighborhood, fixer-upper, etc. And it was dirt cheap due to the city she lived in and those other factors. She had always been smart with her money, so she had a big down payment and was planning on taking the rest of her savings to fix it up. I don't want to get specific with details as it's pretty gruesome and also privacy, but in her third week living there, she had a home invasion while she was home in that room, and she was assaulted. She had no money to move and no family around, so she stayed in the home after buying a security system and locking the door up and planning to just never unlock it and basically never go in that room again. So there you have it. I seriously was not expecting that at all, and has been a long week for her, and I feel terrible. I made her tell me, but she says that she's glad I now know. She never told me before because she didn't want to, which I totally respect. Also, that is when she decided to start a career in law enforcement to help other people. FYI, I have not actually seen in the room, and now I don't feel I ever need to. I, 21 male, found a folder on my girlfriend's, who's 24 female, laptop containing hundreds of candid photos of me. We've only been dating for 5 weeks. Originally posted to r/relationship_advice, and the original post was posted on December 3rd, 2018. And the OP wrote, "Going to keep this short. Last night I stayed over my girlfriend's apartment, which is about 15 minutes away from my college campus. She had to work this morning, and I didn't have any classes today, so I just stayed at her place while she went to work. A few hours after she left, I got bored and decided to try to pull up Netflix on her laptop so I could stream it onto the TV. Whenever I unlocked the laptop, I saw that her photo gallery was pulled up, and in one of the albums, I saw a picture of myself. This album contained literally hundreds of photos of me all over campus that I had no clue existed. A few of the photos were even of me while I was asleep at her place a few weeks ago. What does this mean, and how do I go about bringing this up? She is still at work and gets home in about an hour. Edit. Forgot to add that she doesn't even go to my school, so there is no reason for her to be there." And some of the top comments on this post read as follows. Someone says, "This sounds really creepy. Are the photos timestamped/dated at all? Is it possible she was stalking you before you got together?" And the OP responded saying, "Yeah, about 10 were before we started dating, but we had already met by that point. Still very creepy." And then someone comments underneath OP's response there and says, "Wait, so you're saying it's 10 photo after you meet, but before was dating? Are you sure she didn't have a crush on you after you meet and then took them randomly when seeing you? Was there a photo before you meet?" Someone else says, "If true, this could turn into a potentially dangerous situation. Stalkers do not deal with rejection easily. Make copies of evidence as quickly as you can. Stalkers don't just do it as a phase, and she might need some serious psychological help." The OP responds saying, "That's what I'm thinking too. I plan on breaking up. But should I even bring up the fact that I saw the photos? The crazy part is she doesn't seem like anything is off about her personality-wise." And then someone comments, "Hey babe, I was thinking of making a several hundred photo collage of myself for my mom for Christmas. Know where I can find several hundred candid photos of me?" And then someone says, "Get out. OP should run so hard and fast, he leaves a person-shaped hole in the goddamn wall. This is the beginning of a horror movie." And then someone else says, "Cue the Kool-Aid man. Oh yeah." And then the OP leaves an update. "I've been receiving a bunch of DMs asking if I was dead yet. LOL. I'm not dead yet. I'm fine." So I did what one of the comments suggested I do. I took a photo and a few videos of the photo album in case I need it sometime down the road. And I made sure that I left her apartment about 20 minutes before she got home from work. I drove over to the nearby park, texted her, and told her I was working out, and asked her if she could meet me there when she got home. Anyways, she showed up and I didn't waste any time. I told her that I found the album on her laptop, and she just stared at me with an emotionless look for about 30 seconds. After telling her to say something, all she said was, "Well, this is awkward. I don't really know what to tell you." I asked her why she had all of these weird photos of me, and she just said, "I don't know." I never received a real answer. After trying to get something out of her for like 15 minutes, I told her that I didn't want to do this anymore, and that I thought it'd be best if we separated. Again, she just stared at me and did not say anything. So I left and went back to my place. Since then, she has blocked me on all forms of social media, and I'm pretty sure she blocked my phone number too, so I haven't heard anything from her since leaving the park last night. And then some people say, if she blocked you, it doesn't seem like she wants to contact you again. Not sure a restraining order would work in that situation. The OP then says, "Yeah, I know. At this point, I'm good, but I'm saying if in the near future, if I notice weird stuff continues to happen." And then someone replies to OP saying, "I don't know, man. Her blocking you could be embarrassment, or it could be a way of controlling your ability to block her. I think you should still keep an eye on her." Someone else comments saying, "Her lack of any emotion through this entire interaction is the disturbing piece of this. not even embarrassment or anger. Jeez. Someone else says, that's straight up sociopathy. Right there. That icy look was probably the glare of imminent revenge. I'm telling you, dude, see about getting a protective order. Then someone else says in that comment chain, especially because she blocked him, meaning she can unblock him at will. She purposely took that power out of his hands. And then someone else says, prove that you're OP and you're not OP's girlfriend typing this with his severed hand or something. They'll know it's me if I type it with my own hands. I need to type it with his hands to make sure his essence is in the post. And then that's the end of the thread. So hopefully OP's okay, but a very weird situation. And I wonder what the OP's girlfriend was doing with those photos and why she had them and what sort of situation they were in. Was she stalking him beforehand, or was she just kind of weirdly obsessed with him? And why was she so kind of nonchalant about being caught? Like, her not reacting at all is very, very weird, like the comment said. I really wonder what was going on, but hopefully OP's okay and she's not continuing to take photos of him, because that's a really real possibility. But I don't know, and we have not gotten an update. So I guess we'll have to see. On to the next one. My best friend has crossed the point of no return. IVH. I am watching his life fall apart before my eyes and feel completely helpless to do anything about it. Posted April 15th, 2021. I'm no stranger to drugs. I've tried almost anything anyone has ever put in front of me, and despite that, I've never struggled with substance abuse at any point in my entire life. Never let any substance become a daily thing, besides weed at certain points in my life. But I've always been able to cold turkey if necessary, and I'm talking stims, opiates, and everything in between. Never had cravings I couldn't just toss aside. Honestly, I feel like I'm too busy with my job, hobbies, and personal relationships to ever have the time to be a drug addict. I just don't have enough time to get high, and I'm not in love with it enough to make time. Substances are just something I do for fun sometimes. Throughout my life, most of my friends have been similar to me in this way. I've done more substances than most of them, but only 2 of the friends who have tried as many different substances as I have. One of them was a polydrug user who finally got clean in 2017 after some ODs and is still clean to this day, genuinely living his best life. The other is my best friend, who for the sake of anonymity, we will call Rodney. We were roommates for a few years until I moved in with my girlfriend in April of last year. We've been through a ton together and have been friends for 10 years as of this summer, and extremely close for the past 5. When we lost our townhouse due to my ex causing a ton of shit and eventually withholding rent, my mom took the both of us in until we were able to get back on our feet. That's where the whole situation I'm asking for advice on today really begins. Before we lost our townhouse in mid-2019, Rodney was in a pretty experimental phase of his substance use. He was doing a lot of hallucinogens and other pills, and because it was in front of me so much, I would indulge too, although not as frequently as him. I was personally doing a lot of coke at the time, which he wasn't really engaging with me, saying the hangovers were too much for him at the time, and he found the days after too depressing. The Xans got pretty out of hand for him. He pretty much traded in his average of smoking a ½ ounce of shatter every pay period to maybe 1 or 2 grams and just got fucked on benzos all day instead. Told me they helped him feel human, as he suffered from pretty severe anxiety, and I did too, so I was sensitive to that. Once our supplier stock started getting inconsistent, he eventually drew back out of necessity because he could not handle the withdrawals. Shortly after this is where we moved in with my mom. My mom and her husband are extremely anti-substance. They rarely drink and have both never so much as been in the same room as a joint willingly. It shouldn't surprise anyone that our being welcome pivoted pretty directly on the understanding that we wouldn't be bringing any substances into the house. Rodney, who hasn't spent a day sober since we were 13 years old, actually acclimated shockingly quickly. He respected my parents' rules and kept any shatter he had in his toolbox at work. It's legal here in Canada, but rarely smoked it simply due to the inconvenience of it. Suddenly, substance use was something that he only really engaged in social settings, even with weed. Things were good for us. Come December of that year though, that all changed. Rodney went to Christmas dinner at his family home and was surprised that his dad wasn't there. His parents had recently split up and moved into separate apartments, but were still close friends living in the same building and saw each other frequently, so it didn't make sense for him to not be there. Rodney's twin brother arrived late to dinner and was a bit upset, informing everybody that their dad had called him that day with some news. Turns out their dad is gay, but being an older dude, stayed in the closet due to fear of discrimination for his whole life. He had made the decision to move back to Ontario because he had been in a secret relationship with his boyfriend for an undeclared period of time and couldn't really handle facing the family he raised. The dude literally told one of his 3 kids, "Hey, I'm gay, I have a boyfriend and I'm running away with him. If you could let your mom and siblings know for me, that'd be great," and walked out of their lives completely. On fucking Christmas. Nobody in that room handled it particularly well, understandably so, but Rodney took it really hard. Overnight, the guy shut me out emotionally. He wouldn't go into details about what was on his mind like he usually did, and I didn't want to push him. I figured he just needed time to process what he was facing. To this day, my idea of how he felt at the time is entirely based off of assumption and observation. He became severely depressed. He found a new dealer, my other clean buddy's old connect, who I regrettably introduced him to several years prior, and started buying them by the hundreds. For months, this dude just popped bar after bar until they barely did shit to him anymore. He ended up getting very close to an older man who runs a popular sandwich shop and deli in our town, as one of our mutual friends would go there to smoke weed with him in the back room sometimes. They liked his stories. He led a very interesting life. There is a Sundance Festival award-winning documentary about this particular deli owner. I'm not even shitting you. Well, after a bit, Rodney had been going there long enough for this deli owner to open up to him about the fact that he frequently smoked crystal meth. Rodney, being no stranger to trying new substances and in a particularly vulnerable state, asked if he could try it. Deli guy wouldn't let him for a long while, but eventually cracked after a few weeks of pestering. He smoked crystal every other day for 2 weeks after that, didn't sleep for most of it, and still went to work every single day through it all. He got reckless about substances in my parents' place. He'd be so fucked up, he'd pass out in random spots in the house, and would be so wired other times, he'd start cleaning the kitchen at 2 a.m. and wake everyone up. My parents aren't idiots. They knew something was up. And it all came to a head when he started getting so fucked up on the bars that he'd start sparking joints right there in his bedroom without being lucid enough to remember he wasn't allowed. My parents were aware of the situation with his dad and were trying to be sensitive to it, but they gave him the ultimatum that if this shit didn't stop immediately, he wasn't going to be allowed to live there anymore. They didn't know what he was on. They just wanted it to stop and gave him another chance. I ended up coming clean to all of our other friends that Rodney was going off the rails during a mushroom trip I was on when he wasn't there. My entire life had become mitigating the tension between him and my parents, and the stress of it all was too much for me. He wasn't himself. He wasn't opening up to me anymore, and I was losing my best friend. I needed help getting through to him. He refused to talk about the substance use with anyone, and kept telling people we were all freaking out over nothing and turning him into some kind of spectacle that we would judge for entertainment. It was never like that, but that didn't stop him from permanently cutting several of our close friends out of his life because they weren't supporting him. He just convinced himself that nobody actually cared and they just wanted something to gossip about. He got kicked out of my parents last April and moved into a shitty motel in our town on a weekly rate for a bit. He was super fucked up on bars one day and came clean to me that he started having relations with the deli guy during their meth sessions. I don't know if he even remembers telling me. Said he's not gay, but he likes to get off or some shit. It seemed to me like he was really questioning his identity after everything with his dad. And it was going off the rails trying to get his head in order and was doing a dangerously poor job at it. I started to withdraw from him after he got kicked out of my mom's. He wouldn't listen to me anymore, and it hurts me too much to force it. By this point, the pandemic was in full swing. I'd see him outside my house from time to time, and he told me he was cleaning up, not doing the bars anymore. He had a fair number of other drug stories. However, mostly coke binges, despite the fact that he used to hate blow, but was suddenly all for it. He would talk about hanging out with other people who I'd never met and doing substances with them. He'd always keep it vague though, And even when I'd call him out on it, he'd never go into detail about what he was doing with them. Aside from the mysteriousness, he seemed like he was pretty much back to his old self for a while. When we hung out, it finally felt normal. Sure, he had his substance stories, but they were much more in tune with the occasional fun type stories they used to be for us than the constant it became for him at one point. I thought he was getting better. I was wrong. One plug started selling hydros. I don't fuck with opiates anymore. My girlfriend's dad is an addict who abandoned them when she was 11, and I won't touch them out of respect for her. But Rodney picked a few up and took them to a test site. They were clean. No fent at all. He flaunted that receipt like he just found the damn Ark of the Covenant or some shit. Suddenly, he was doing hydros almost daily. He justified it in his head that, because they were clean, they were safe. Kept trying to do them with me, but I refused. At first, he was fine not bringing them around me. But as time went on, and the pandemic restrictions relaxed to allow him in-home gatherings again, he started disappearing to the bathroom for a while. When he'd come out and come out nodding like a motherfucker. I didn't say much. Felt like the words would be wasted on him. I thought that maybe, if I was just there for him emotionally, while he worked through everything, it would all be okay. Then the safe supply came. During the pandemic, our government began prescribing opiates for recreational use to addicts because our street opiate supply was so overridden with fent. He also has to take methadone with it to get the hydros, but he still gets 6 4-milligram hydros a day from the pharmacy. That was a problem, because he wasn't doing anywhere near that many hydros before due to the cost. But with the safe supply, all he had to pay was a dispensing fee, around the cost of a single pill from the plug. His tolerance shot through the roof. Within less than a month of him getting the safe supply, him and I had planned a coke night with another buddy of ours. This was last weekend. We picked up the coke, and he asked me to give him a ride to this random address in town. I pulled up outside, and it was junkies as far as the eye could see. A couple of cops posted up, and what looked like to be some kind of social service building. He ran inside for a minute, and came back out with a paper bag. I asked him what it was, and he confessed to me that his tolerance had gotten too high to do the hydros nasally. So he's been going to the safe injection site to get supplies he can IV with. He also confessed to me that he had bought some H from one of the junkies outside, just for the come down, in case he ran out of hydros by the time the blow was gone. He told me that he is just having his fun, and that I have nothing to worry about, that he's not some lazy junkie. He still has his shit together, etc. Then he admitted he's been banging it for a few weeks now. And last time he was at my place, the reason he was nodding out so harsh is because he was still nailing down the right IV dose. I pretended in the moment that I believed him, that it was no big deal. We went through that coke night with him sticking a needle in his arm every time he wanted to dose. Coke, hydros, and H direct into his veins. I hated every second of it. But I didn't want him to feel judged, so I kept my mouth shut. Told myself that if things got bad, I'd freak out then. And yet, every single day since that coke night, I can barely sleep. I keep thinking about this dark-ass road he's decided to walk down and genuinely think he's lost his fucking mind. This dude is like my brother, and I feel like he has a disease and I'm watching him die. He's so convincing when he talks, like it's all no big deal. But it is a big deal, right? Is there any such thing as a functional, recreational IVH user? Am I insane for even considering the fact that that could exist? I don't want to lose my brother, but I don't know what I can do to help him. I feel like if I push back on him about this, he will cut me out. I don't want him to feel alone. I want him to feel supported. But it's so beyond time for him to get clean. He's suffering. He's hurting himself day by day, and I don't know how to help him. Do I give him an ultimatum? Do I tell him that he's got to choose between me or the drugs? Do I tell his mom? I swear to God, if I do nothing and something does happen to him, I will never forgive myself. I just don't know what to do. I know that he's dealing with severe mental health struggles, but I feel like he's just running away. He won't talk to me or open up to me about any of it anymore. Ever since his dad, he hasn't been the same. I just want my brother back. Any advice that you guys can give me, I would really appreciate. I just feel so lost. Update, April 19th, 2021. Before I get into the update, I just want to quickly thank everyone who reached out. Your advice was reaffirming, and although I wasn't necessarily comforted by a lot of it, I certainly felt a clearer head. Things got a lot worse after writing my last post. Rodney's 21st birthday is at the end of this month, and when we still lived together, a massive hobby we both shared was record collecting. He got into it because I had a turntable and stereo in our townhouse, and he wanted to be able to have records of his own to listen to on it. He was unable/uninterested in getting his own after I moved in with my girlfriend, mostly because he was too preoccupied with his substance use. He'd still buy records with me, but he would only listen to them on my turntable at my house. I sold him my old stereo when I did some upgrading last summer, and the only thing he needed was a turntable of his own to start listening to his records again. I had the idea that if I got him his own turntable, maybe he would be able to start reconnecting with hobbies again and be able to get his mind right before the H use got out of hand. I got him a beautiful vintage deck and had it refurbished with a fresh cartridge installed. I decided to give it to him early, wrapped it and everything, and got him a few crates to store his records in since he could take them home now. I invited him over and didn't say anything about the gift. I wanted it to be a surprise. But unfortunately, he never showed up. I spam called/texted him, but got nothing. He eventually called me hours after he was supposed to come by, sounding absolutely high off his dome. Said he fell asleep and just woke up. I told him he had to come through the following day to make it up to me. He agreed. The next day, he got sent home from work as his boss said he was visibly inebriated and was a safety concern for the shop. He lost it on his boss and threw everything away by quitting on the spot. This was a new boss at his shop. His old boss, who he worked under for over half a decade, completed his entire apprenticeship with, got his certification with, recently moved up in the company, and isn't really there to advocate for him now. They tried to talk him out of it, but he walked out. Eventually, several hours late, he did make it to my house. He looked haggard, and his voice sounded all creaky and barely coherent. Before he would even talk to me, he said he needed to use the bathroom. Stayed in there for a half hour, and he came out barely able to stand straight and called his regional manager while completely blasted to yell about how offended he was by what his direct supervisor had done. I tried to get him off the phone, but he essentially just did everything he could to burn that bridge right to the fucking ground. They won't take his calls now. He opened his turntable. He cried when he saw it. Thanked me up and down and told me how much it meant to him. Then nodded off halfway through, expressing his gratitude. When he essentially came to, he didn't even remember the turntable interaction. Just kept yelling incoherently about how his boss only sent him home because he felt threatened and he jealous that Rodney has the highest numbers in the shop. He cycled through that for a few hours. It was excruciating. I mean, I guess I'm the idiot for thinking that buying him the one thing he needed to reconnect with his hobby would fix everything. It hurt my feelings a little bit though, admittedly, that he seemed to lose interest so fast. He was so far removed from logical thought, he didn't even seem like the same person. I felt it in that moment the way I assume people do when dealing with belligerent alcoholic family members. From that moment, I knew that I was going to have to confront him and tell him that if he wasn't willing to get clean, I was going to have to take a step back until he was. I dropped him off at home that night and helped him bring his stuff up. I needed time to think before going ahead with this. Said goodbyes and just cried into my girlfriend's arms for hours. I was just so angry. He knew better. I was furious that he had taken shit this far and now I was going to lose one of the most important people in the world to me because of drugs. I felt so numb by the time I settled down. It was an awful night. I ended up telling our clean friend I mentioned in the last post, I'm just going to name him Jackson for simplicity, everything, as he worked for a rehab center in our city during his recovery for years and still had connections there. He basically agreed that I had to stop enabling Rodney and agreed with my plan to take a step back. I took the weekends and spent some time with two of my other close friends, just longboarding around a park in our town, enjoying the sunshine to clear my head. Yesterday, I went downtown and bought some records for myself and went to the beach with my girlfriend. It was all exactly what I needed just to feel human for a second. This morning, Jackson messaged me. Rodney had reached out to him and come clean about everything. The full story I told you guys, plus the fact that the only thing he can think about is shooting up and he needs to inject his full daily allotment of hydros at once just to feel anything. That he's been doing tons of H/fentanyl just to fight off withdrawals. And he admitted that he was in way too deep and was utterly terrified for his life. I messaged him immediately and just said good morning to him and that I hoped his weekend went well. Reminded him that I loved him. He told me right away about the conversation he was having with Jackson, and he told me he needed to go to rehab, how he needed help, how he just wanted to be happy with his life again and doesn't want to lose everything. We talked all morning this morning. Rodney told me he made it all the way through yesterday without shooting any H, but he cracked this morning. Scraped all his tins for anything he could get. He told me he felt so out of control of himself and he just needs support to get better. He's ready to get clean. He doesn't want to be just another junkie. We're still messaging back and forth for a little. I'm talking to Jackson in the back end. Jackson just told me he's pulled some strings to get Rodney in to the rehab that saved his life 4 years ago. He's getting admitted tomorrow morning. Rodney can't afford it, but somehow Jackson has negotiated a reduced rate for Rodney to go and has taken care of his first month's cost. A few grand. Not even joking. They're going to get him some income assistance and they're going to accept whatever the government is willing to provide, even if it doesn't pay the cost in full. I cried at my desk. I'm so damn proud of him for taking this step and, in a way, I'm also relieved that I didn't need to force it. My boy is still in there. He still cares about himself. He still loves me, and now he's going to get better. And I'm back crying at my desk, haha. Thank you again, all of you, for talking me through all of this on my last post. I appreciate every single one of you. Update, October 12th, 2022. The original post feels like a lifetime ago at this point, but I still get messages on this account from time to time asking about Rodney or for advice on how to help their own loved ones. And I figured now is as good a time as any to give everyone some closure. Jackson was able to make good on his promise and Rodney went to rehab, as planned, that next morning. He had picked up his prescription hydros he was getting at the time and injected all 6 of them right before going into the building. According to Rodney, they barely hit him. Jackson said it is some kind of rite of passage when addicts head into rehab. Gives him closure. Evidently, it didn't do any more damage than it already had. The rehab Rodney went to was impatient and was able to give him a lot of resources that he previously hadn't had access to. Counseling helped him sort out some issues he had, and a psychiatrist was able to prescribe him some medications to help level out his previously undiagnosed bipolar disorder. He was on some sort of medications for some time as well, but stopped at some point. He spent 3 months in first stage recovery, where he wasn't allowed out without a chaperone, but moved into a second stage house after the fact. Second stage functioned a lot like a halfway house, a sober living facility that they just had to be back at every night. He got a sponsor and took on his own sponsor after he got a 6-month chip. He continued living in second stage for over a year after that and became employed by the rehab facility he went to within a few months of being in second stage as a house manager. He kept that job until he began pursuing a college education in social work at the beginning of this year. He even made Dean's List in his first semester. Although almost everybody at his center said there's no such thing as a one and done, Rodney was. I spoke at his 1-year cake back in April, the week of his 25th. Tears were shed, laughs were had. It was a huge meeting with tons, and it was really heartwarming to see so many people all there to support each other. It was also good for me as, because of Rodney's rehab being a decent distance from our old neighborhood, we don't get to spend nearly as much time together as we used to. That's fine by me. I'm just glad he's still here with a life to live. But I miss him. He moved out of his second stage house just under 2 weeks ago. He's staying with his mom while he finds his footing for his first stint outside the recovery world since he got clean. He's working hard on his studies. He never relapsed. He's insanely committed to his sobriety, as he should be. And most importantly, my boy's alive. And honestly, better off than he was to begin with. I'm glad that this is how it all ended up. Thank you to all the folks who reached out with supportive words when I first posted these. To anyone who reached out to me who were in similar circumstances, I hope your story has an equally happy ending. Same goes for anyone that ever reads these threads again. And if you ever need support, don't hesitate to reach out. There is hope. Thanks for reading, guys. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. A customer found my home, rang my doorbell for half an hour, and left when the cops arrived. Originally posted to Retail Hell. Originally posted on August 4th, 2025. I, 27 female, work in the cannabis industry, and this man has been a customer of mine for 4+ years. Our interactions have been very tame. He walks in, buys his pre-roll, and walks out. He is about 3 years younger than me, doesn't have a job, lives with his mom, and doesn't have a car, so he walks everywhere. Last Thursday, which was July 31st, he came around to buy as usual. About 5 minutes later, he comes back and says, "Do you mind if I sit down? It's just really hot out there." I didn't mind because the heat index was about 104 degrees and I was being polite. I gave him a drink and told him to rest until he was ready to leave. He was wearing a jacket in the middle of a heat wave. He ended up staying for an hour just chatting about random things like the economy, Ozzy Osbourne's death, things going on in his life. It wasn't until he started talking about trying to find a girl to go to the fair with, take on hikes, etc., that I find his being there suspicious. He seems like a really socially awkward guy, and in the 4 years he's been coming to the shop, I never felt threatened by him. I made it pretty clear that I'm working on myself, that I'm going back to school, working out at the gym, and focusing on myself. I told him if he was looking for a girl, he should try Hinge or Tinder because I've had luck finding last-minute dates there. I basically kicked him out and said, "Well, it's been nice talking to you, but I have to use the restroom." Before he left, he turned to me and asked if I was working on Saturday. I told him no, and then he asked me to the fair. I said, "No, I'm sorry, I already have plans." Fast forward to around 9:30 p.m. this evening. I was doing laundry, sitting on the couch when my doorbell rings. We live in condos, and normally people come to the back door where the parking lot is. The doorbell ringing is extremely abnormal. I didn't really think much of it. I thought maybe someone had ordered food and it got delivered to the wrong house. I put a load of laundry in and got into the shower. While I was in the shower, I heard someone pounding on the front door. I basically ignored it because I'm not getting out of the shower to answer it. But when I finally got out of the shower, my doorbell was ringing incessantly. Ding, 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 pound, 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 ding, ding, ding. I call my mom because I'm freaking out, and I'm thinking there might be an emergency in the neighborhood. But my neighbors know me, have my number, and would have come to the back door. She's on the phone with me, and she hears this racket too. My dog is raising hell, and there is someone very eager for me to open the door. I peek through the blinds of my spare bedroom, and lo and behold, there is my customer. The customer who asked me out, and I rejected. He's been there about 20 minutes now trying to get me to open the door. I live really close to work, within walking distance. He must have followed me home after work or seen me walking my dog in the neighborhood. Who knows how long he's been tracking my movements, but he's at my house on a Sunday night banging on my door and ringing the doorbell nonstop. I text my neighbor, who's basically like a mom to me, and she's at my house in seconds. We're at the back door, still hearing the doorbell and the pounding on the door. I'm shaking from head to toe. I'm disoriented because I don't know what the hell is going on, and she calls the cops for me. The cops are there within 5 minutes. From the time the last knock/ring sounded to the time the cops arrived was maybe 3 minutes. He must have booked it as soon as he saw the patrol officer. I gave my statement to the police, tell them about Thursday, tell them that my customer has been banging on my door for over half an hour. They call more squad cars to patrol the other neighborhoods. But after 4+ years of having this customer, I don't know his name. I have literally no idea who this guy is and what he wants from me. How long has he known where I live? How long has he been stalking me? What was his motive for ringing my doorbell for half an hour so late at night? Did he want to hurt me? Did he want to kill me? I don't know. All I did was tell him I was busy and I couldn't go to the fair with him. Sorry. I ended up calling my friend, and she's letting me crash at her place tonight, but I'm so uncomfortable about going home. I live alone with my dog, and I don't want to move, but if I cannot figure out this guy's name, there's nothing I can do legally. It's 3 a.m. now, and I'm combing through all security footage, transaction history, Literally anything that can give me a hint at who he is. He told me he got fired from JCPenney, but I'm not sure they will divulge his information to me. I'm trying to gather enough evidence that the cops can track him down without his name, but I'm so terrified. I cannot sleep, cannot eat, cannot fathom going back to the house I call a home knowing this man infiltrated my life with such demand. How will I ever go back to work? What am I to do? I had plans, I had ambitions to leave this job, but now I'm faced with the choice of leaving now or potentially putting myself in danger. I'm so sick of people. I'm terrified of everyone now. Because no matter how long you've known someone, how many times you may have interacted with them, they are not to be trusted. They are a threat to you, your life, and your personal space. I cannot stop crying and I'm nervous about everything now. I don't know what to do anymore. I just want to live a normal life where I'm not threatened for declining a date. I just wanted to share my story. I'm going to do my best to file a restraining order, but I'm not sure that is enough. I fear I'll have to move, leave my good paying job, and watch my every move from here on out. I don't feel safe anymore. And then some comments on this post read as follows. Someone says, please tell your boss/manager. He needs to be banned from the store because he has clearly crossed boundaries and he does not deserve to have any access to you at all. And the OP responds to that saying, already on it. My boss is extremely kind and understanding. He is helping me look through the backlog security footage to try and find this guy's name. He is familiar with this customer as he's been a longtime patron to our store. Another commenter says, in what state did this happen? I only ask because every single dispensary I've ever been to in California, I've always had to show my ID that gets scanned by a front-end person on a computer before I can go to where the sales floor is. The computer database has all of my information, and every dispensary I've ever been in has tons of security cameras everywhere. Seems like you should be able to cross-reference the last time he came in with the time code on the video footage to find out his name in the system. And the OP responds saying, Tennessee. It's a non-legal state, so things are unregulated. I scan an item marked 21 plus, and then I scan their ID, verifying their age. Unless they are a loyalty member, I don't have their name/number, but I'm pretty sure this individual is in our system. He pays with cash 95% of the time and never enters his loyalty number when he pays. I can only figure out the information I need if I can find security footage of him paying with card. It's been a bitch, still searching. And then the OP gives us an update, posted on September 3rd, 2025. She said, I'd first like to say, I wasn't expecting as much engagement as I had on my last post. Thank you to everyone who validated my feelings and gave me helpful advice. If you haven't read that post, I suggest you do because it gives you all the information about what happened to me the night my customer came to my house. I'd like to clarify a few things from my last post that a lot of people had questions about. Although I work in the cannabis industry, I operate in a non-legal state, meaning I only have to scan IDs and not save the person's information each time they make a purchase. THC and Delta are regulated just like alcohol in my state, so I was unable to get the person's information solely from his ID. It's been a month, so I'd like to update everyone on how I'm doing, what has happened since, and what I'm doing to legally protect myself. I won't go into much detail, but I was able to find the person's information through our security camera in Square Business Portal. I found a time where he used a credit card, and since he was a loyalty member with us, his name was attached to the account. I paid for a background check and was able to find a full name and address, which I gave to the police as well as all the security camera footage I had on the day he asked me out, and I refused. All the evidence was sent to the police and compiled into an evidence folder. The police officers visited his home, asked him questions about that night that he came to my home, and knocked on my door for half an hour. On body camera, he admitted to coming to my house, and his excuse was that she sold me gummies that made me high for 5 days. Like, that's not an excuse for coming to my home at 9:30 at night. I assure you, if there was a THC gummy in a non-legal state that made you high for 5 days, no one would not be able to keep them on the shelf. This was enough for the cops to allow me to press charges of harassment against him. In order for him to make bail, he had to sign a bond condition stating that he would not come to my house or my place of business. If he broke the bond condition, he would be rearrested and charged with aggravated stalking, which is exactly what happened today. After almost a month of not seeing this person, I saw him walking in front of my store. I didn't think much of it, although it did frighten me. I continued to help customers and did my job. He was not approaching the building, and there was no reason to lose my cool over just seeing him. That is, until he walked by again. I ended up locking the door and watching his movement from the window. He turned a corner and I figured, okay, he's leaving, it's nothing to worry about. I unlocked the door to resume business. I was sitting down at the computer when all of a sudden, he enters the shop and sits down in one of our waiting chairs. I wasn't paying attention to the outside, so he came out of nowhere and shocked me. I say to him calmly at first, "You need to leave or I am calling the cops." And he replies, "Why?" I just kept repeating myself and he keeps saying, why? I finally reach for the phone and I'm now screaming at him to leave, get the fuck out of here, I'm calling the cops. What irked me the most is not that he had the audacity to violate his bond condition and come to my store, but that he kept saying my first name. Like, please, blank, don't call the cops, blank, why? I didn't even know his name until I pressed charges against him and he acted like we were friends. Like he had every right to be at my place of business and that I wouldn't call the cops on him again because we had some sort of relationship. It all happened so quickly, and when he finally left, I locked the door again and proceeded to have a full-blown panic attack. I don't know if anyone else has experienced a panic attack, but it felt like someone had dunked my head underwater and I couldn't breathe. My entire body was shaking from head to toe and I was sobbing. I called the owner and he came shortly after. We phoned the police and they did exactly what they said they would do. I had to pull the security camera footage from the event and hand it over to the cops. They gathered another warrant out for his arrest and charged him with aggravated stalking, trespassing, and violation of a bond. He will have a GPS monitor attached to him if he makes bail again, and I will be notified if he comes anywhere near my place of work or home. They will also call me to notify me if he is bailed out. I will be filing an order of protection in the morning. I did not previously file one because I was under the assumption that he would not come back after the bond condition. Lesson learned. I've installed security cameras at the front and back of my house, have notified all my neighbors and the surrounding businesses by my work to be on the lookout for him. I truly was getting better. I was focusing on my mental health, playing a whole bunch of Animal Crossing, working out daily, focusing on treating myself with kindness, but after today, it's like I've been transported to day one all over again. I start a technical course on Monday, which will hopefully get me out of retail, but for now, I have to continue to work at my job and provide myself an income. I'd just like to say to all the men and women out there dealing with a customer who is a bit too friendly or has made advances towards you, to never take these things lightly. Please learn from my experience that no matter how long you've had a customer, how many times you've interacted with them, that they may have ulterior motives. I never thought he would come back, but he did. I genuinely thought the next time I would see him is at his court hearing when I testified, but he threw away his life today by trusting me not to call the cops. I will not apologize for protecting myself. He had it coming to him. I'm more angry than anything, but I'm eternally grateful that the local police have made an effort to keep this individual away from me. Please take care of yourself and trust your gut when it comes to people that are being suspicious. No one should have to go through what I'm going through, and it's all because I refuse to go on a date with a customer. And then some of the comments on this thread read as follows. I've been through something similar. It has been a year, but when I see a car that looks like his, I have a mini heart attack. These people who do this shit to us are so unbelievably delusional. It is terrifying that they have such a romanticized interpretation of a situation that will literally haunt us for a long ass time. And then the OP responds to this comment saying, I'm seeking therapy at the moment because every time I hear a knock or doorbell, even in a TV show, I immediately start getting anxiety. I've woken up from dreams where I'm haunted by the sound of a doorbell. PTSD is real, and it's wild to me that anyone, especially customers, inflict this kind of torture on an individual. I hope you're staying safe and have been able to live life to the fullest regardless of your trauma. And then the final comment on this post read, so sorry to hear what is going on. It's a scary world out there. Sending air hugs, panic attacks sucks. Updates in a month or so, if no other news. Just want to make sure you are still okay and still around. And then the OP commented, "I'll be sure to update everyone about his trial, and he has been sentenced. Thank you for the support. Us retail folks really need to look out for one another. It's like the Wild West out here." And luckily, OP's okay for now, and hopefully the stalker gets, rightfully sentenced for what he's doing. I mean, we've read a few threads about stalkers, and you guys everyone watching, just be safe. If you have a weird feeling about someone, maybe trust your gut. Maybe they are doing something weird behind your back. And also for this post that we just read, it's so incredibly creepy that this guy could have been following her for who knows how long. I mean, he could have followed her home every single day for the past few years that he's been showing up at the shop. She just doesn't know. He could have been looking through windows. He could have been staring at her when she walks home from work, staring through the window. I mean, you don't know what these people do. And then maybe eventually he just gained the confidence to ring the doorbell. And who knows what would have happened if she opened the door for him. I mean, he could have rushed in. He could have hurt her. He could have said something weird. He could have, who knows, lured her out. I mean, you never know. So just trust your gut, be safe, guys, and on to the next one. Terrifying imposter. Don't trust authority figures blindly. Posted on r/legal advice. The post read as follows. Hello, I'm 29 years old, happily married. My husband and I are college educated, have respectable, stable jobs, own a home in a nice neighborhood. We're basically as prepared as anyone can be to start a family. I'm almost 9 months pregnant with our first child. The problem is that 11 years ago, when my husband was a freshman in college, he was arrested for possession of marijuana. It was a large enough amount that he was charged with a Class D felony. Our jurisdiction is very harsh regarding marijuana, but not intent to deal. He pled guilty and did his time in probation without a problem, passing every drug test along the way. He has not touched marijuana or any other illegal substance since, and we barely ever drink, and haven't at all in over a year. I have no criminal record and have never done substances myself. It was a stupid mistake he made as a foolish 18-year-old, and he's worked hard to put it behind him. Someone has apparently contacted child services in our area and informed them that we are drug users. This accusation is being taken very seriously because of my husband's record. We have been as cooperative as could be with our caseworker. We've been interviewed, our home has been examined, and she found nothing remotely suspicious or incriminating. We have both taken drug tests and passed. Our caseworker says that everything looks just fine so far. Unfortunately, she also says that there's still the possibility that our child could be taken away from us in the labor and delivery ward, and that we won't be allowed to take her home. I was devastated and horrified to hear that. When I asked why, she said it was not up to her, and we'll have to wait and see, which made absolutely no sense to me. What gives? I feel like there's something she isn't telling me, but I have no experience with DCS and I'm not aware of anything we could have possibly done wrong. I know they will have to test my daughter for drugs when she's born, but she has not been exposed to drugs, nothing more than prenatal vitamins, not even Tylenol. And I already proved that by passing a drug test. I'm scared and confused. Do I need a lawyer? I had anticipating spending our savings on our new daughter/parental leave, but I will use that money for a lawyer if I have to. Thanks for reading, and thanks in advance for your help. And then the OP gave us a terrifying update. I was advised to get a lawyer right away. I was also advised that Indiana's DCS doesn't investigate pregnant women who don't already have kids, and that the woman claiming to be a social worker might be an imposter. I contacted and met with a lawyer and explained the situation to him. He seemed to agree that something was very fishy. To make a long story short, the woman handling our case has no affiliation with DCS. I'm still in complete shock. We went straight to the police. They are taking this very seriously. I can't give a lot of details because it's an ongoing investigation, but she seems to have been a very skilled/well-researched liar. I never would have known anything was amiss without the advice of this subreddit and the intervention of my attorney. I feel like a complete idiot, but the instinct to cooperate unquestioningly when faced with an intimidating authority figure is strong. I haven't had the baby yet. We're staying at a trusted family member's home until the baby is born. My OB in the hospital we'll be delivering at have already been informed of the situation and will be taking the appropriate security measures. I'm still freaking out, but we're taking every precaution for the safety of my child, and hopefully everything will turn out okay. Thanks again, everybody. Truly. And this final thread was so terrifying to me. I mean, a lot of you guys don't know, but a long time ago, I covered a conspiracy theory iceberg, and one of the conspiracy theories was fake social workers. So maybe that's not a conspiracy theory after all. I mean, I'm not going to say it's true, but this is such a scary story. Imagine you're going to have a kid, and a trusted government worker is, working with you, and they end up just being a complete stranger trying to steal your child away from you. That is a terrifying situation. And there's no more update from OP. That was posted 4 years ago, so most likely the OP will not have an update for us, but I really hope that the baby's all right, they're all right. But I just got goosebumps when I read that, it wasn't a social worker. It was just some liar. And imagine, how many people this person could have fooled. And they could have got something from the baby. They could have stole the baby. They could have done something. They just don't know. I just find that so scary. And I'm very glad that OP and hopefully her family are doing well now. But that is just an insane story and just terrifying. And that wraps up today's video of some terrifying Reddit threads. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. I read every single comment. Consider joining the Patreon for just $5 a month to get early access, extra content, and early videos, and uncensored. Maybe I already said early videos twice. Oh well. But thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. Would you like to see longer videos, shorter videos? Would you like to see more of these videos in the future? Just comment down below everything. I read every single one. And thank you so much for watching. This was Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Right now, you're watching this video on a screen, and that screen is innocent, or it can be a doorway to something darker. One wrong click, one stray curiosity, and you can find yourself trapped in a corner of the internet that's so twisted, so grotesque, and so horrifying, it changes you forever. Cult leaders who live stream their own delusions, rescue videos that are anything but rescues, and blogs written by monsters who believe the world owed them forgiveness. Today, we're opening doors most people scroll past and leaving no rock unturned and finding the worst corners of the World Wide Web. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's get into some horrifying internet rabbit holes. The fifth nail. According to one myth, the gypsies crafted 5 nails for Christ's execution, not 4. The 5th nail was made to pierce his heart, but the gypsies kept it hidden. In some stories, the women are punished, and in others, they are rewarded. This 5th nail is said to have once been an existing religious artifact with special healing powers. Its existence today is somewhat questionable, unless, of course, you consider the philosophical symbolism. The quote I just read, though it seems harmless, is anything but. It's an excerpt from one of the most disturbing pieces of online literature I have ever read. A collection of blog posts by a sick, demented criminal. And although normally the blog is very difficult to find, I scoured the internet and finally got my hands on it. A harrowing view into the mind of Joseph Edward Duncan III, American serial killer, on his infamous 5th Nail blog. Joseph Edward Duncan III was born in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, on February 25th, 1963. His father was a military man on active duty, so the family moved every year or two, all across the United States. He had many siblings and for the most part had a good early childhood. Although he claims it was awful, his siblings insist it was a good home. In 1979, his parents decided to separate. His older sisters moved out on their own. His younger brother went to live with his father, and Joseph, alone, lived with his mother. Now, very little is known about his childhood from that time forward, but we do know about his actions, because Duncan, when living in Tacoma at the age of 15, held a 9-year-old boy hostage at gunpoint and did unspeakable things to him. That was his first criminal offense that we know of. The following year, he stole a car and was sent to an all-boys group home for juvenile offenders called the Jesse Dyslin Boys Ranch, which, by the way, this boys ranch could be a whole video by itself. Very problematic institution, but that's not the topic we're covering today. While he was there, he admitted to a therapist that before the age of 16, he had brutalized an estimated 13 younger boys by various different means, including binding their hands and feet before carrying out his sadistic, perverted acts on them. I'd like to reiterate that I said estimated, as in he wasn't sure of an exact number. Estimated. He was released from the boys' home in 1980, and in that same year, he broke into a neighbor's house, stole their guns, kidnapped another preteen, and did the same shit he did to the other estimated 13 boys. So yeah, this guy was a monster. And from what I know of him, he was always a monster. After this final attack at 17 years old, he was sentenced to 20 years in prison. He served 14 of those and was let out on parole in 1994. Duncan settled in Seattle, where he tried to keep his head down. He spent 2 years as a free man doing unspeakable things we'll discuss later. Then, 2 years later, in 1996, he was caught violating his parole by smoking weed and was again in jail. After several weeks, he was released again under new probationary conditions. After his release, unbelievably, he violated parole again and was rearrested again and was finally released in 2000 at the turn of the century. This time, he wanted a whole new start, so he moved to Fargo, North Dakota to be closer to his mother and adult siblings. But Duncan had some resentments. After all that, all of his sick crimes, leaving behind 14 victims in the wake of his sadism before the age of 16, he felt he was treated wrongly. Duncan believed that he shouldn't be judged for his crimes, and without a platform to speak his mind, in 2004, he started making blog posts. He called it Fifth Nail. Here is an excerpt from his first ever post, edited for decency, which I'm gonna say was incredibly difficult. January 4th, 2004. Just found out that a 5-year-old girl went missing from Chisholm, Minnesota on June 14th, 2003, this year. I did not even know until today that this happened, so I tried to figure out what I was doing that day, since I'm always afraid of getting accused when something like this happens. You might say that finding out about the girl missing is the most proverbial last straw, because of all the other recent incidences in the news lately, especially regarding missing people and the resulting intensification of the persecution of perverse criminal offenders. I've decided to start this blog as a sort of check and balance of where I am. This is for my own safety. I figure it is just a matter of time before I am falsely accused of some crime or another. I already had the police at my door telling me some women downtown were waving my picture around that they printed from the internet, accusing me of harassing them for a date. The visits was very intimidating and not friendly. I was warned that I was being watched as a known perpetrator of perverse crimes. The visit made me consult an attorney for advice. He told me there was nothing I could do unless charges were filed. I feel like a southern black man, just wondering when the lynch mob is going to show up at my door. His paranoia, it turns out, was correct. Remember that 2-year period where Duncan was free before, being arrested 2 more times? Well, turns out the police suspected he wasn't keeping his head down in that time frame. They believed his crimes had only gotten worse. And while Duncan was blogging about his woeful existence as one of the most disgusting human beings I've ever had the misfortune of learning the name of, the police were piecing together his latest sadistic crime. Now, before I get into that, I'm going to read one more excerpt from his blog. There's about 2 years of regular entries, and most of them are absolutely vile. And frankly, I don't want to read any more than I have to. So just to get a clear picture of this man, here's another entry for you from his infamous online diary. And viewer discretion, because this is one of the more insane ones I found. February 2nd, 2005. I committed a perverse crime when I was very young. I was sentenced to a perverse crimes program for adults where half the men in my treatment group sat and fantasized about me. After 2 years, I was a senior member when the state therapist paid a surprise visit to my mother's house and propositioned her, saying it would help your son in the program if you cooperate with me. When she told me about it, I quit the program and was sent to prison, where accordingly to at least one official report that was written before I was sentenced, because of his appearance and age, he would likely be mistreated by other inmates if sent to prison. True story. I thought I would only do a few years and get out not having to be around such evil people who represent the system. But because of hysteria, I ended up spending over 12 more years in prison before finally being awarded parole. All my psych reports say I am a low risk. I was just a kid acting out of confusion over my own experiences. And studies show conclusively that my type of offense is rarely repeated. And yet almost 30 years later, while I have no parole, nor have I ever committed a new crime, the police insist on knocking on my door several times a year, and sometimes in the wee hours. Check that I still live here. I have no privacy at all. Anyone in the state, country, even world can find out where I live, what I look like, and what I did when I was a kid just by typing my name on any web browser. This does not only hurt me. If that was all, I could accept it because what I did was bad. But it hurts my mother, my family, my friends, and even my neighbors who thought I was a great guy. Until they find out. Then they are afraid of me. It hurts society because it scares people into thinking every strange person is a suspect, and at the same time it deceives them into thinking the government can make them safe by telling them about the bad ones. Even the Fargo police website admits few convicted perverse criminals ever reoffend, so some of the more ignorant people in the world will read this and think they deserve it. I call these people ignorant because they don't see the hurt they are causing. More children, more victims, just because they are afraid to admit their own secret desires. I cannot express to you all how much I absolutely, to my core, fucking despise this man. The fact that I just had to speak those words out loud disgusts me. But it's important for you to know who this man was. Irredeemable scum. One of the worst people I've ever written about. Bar none. And the self-proclaimed innocent Duncan was about to go on a killing spree. May 16th, 2005. Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. The grown family are spending the night together. They were a tight-knit household, a loving family. The mother of the household, Brenda, then 38, was asleep in bed with her boyfriend, Mark McKenzie. In the adjacent room slept her kids, 13-year-old Slade, 9-year-old Dylan, and 8-year-old Shasta. It had been a peaceful, uneventful day. And tonight, they were all resting easy. But not for long. At approximately 11 p.m., Joseph Edward Duncan broke into the home. Brenda woke up and rushed into Dylan and Shasta's bedroom. Someone's in the house. She gathered the kids with her boyfriend, and they ran into the living room, trying to escape. When they encountered Duncan, dressed in all black, carrying a gun, Duncan tied up the family. At some point, he pulled Dylan and Shasta outside, leaving them alone on the lawn. Though immobile, inside the sound of sickening thuds could be heard as Duncan bludgeoned the boyfriend, mother, and eldest son to death. The two surviving children, Dylan and Shasta, were kidnapped. For 6 weeks, Duncan took them to campsites and did unspeakable things to them. After 5 weeks, he accidentally killed Dylan when a shotgun misfired. After the death of her brother, Shasta was nearly killed also, but she convinced him not to by using his family nickname, Jet. Eventually, the two were found at a Denny's in Shasta's hometown of Coeur d'Alene. Shasta is the only surviving member of the grown family. Joseph Edward Duncan III was arrested and convicted of murder for the nighttime massacre of the grown family. But that's not all. Remember that 2-year parole period? Turns out he spent that time on another, earlier killing spree. He was found responsible for the deaths of Samiaho White, 11 years old, her half-sister, Carmen Cubayas, 9 years old, and Anthony Martinez, 10 years old. The jurors who sentenced Joseph Duncan to the death penalty had to be offered counseling for the horrific evidence shown on trial, including a 33-minute video of him physically attacking one of his victims. He died at the age of 58 from brain cancer. The Fifth Nail blog is an x-ray into the mind of a horrific, disgusting vermin known as Joseph Edward Duncan III. Like I said, there are 2 years of blog posts, but honestly, you might want to skip this rabbit hole. There's a ton of information, a ton of description and detail on his Fifth Nail blog, but at the end of the day, the only thing that matters in this story are the victims. All of them. Young and gone way too soon. I hope they can rest easy knowing this man can't hurt anyone else ever again. Animal exploitation. 5 years ago, a video was posted to YouTube titled, "Rescue the Pitiful Little Dog Falling Down the Drain. Screaming for help, nobody cares." In the video, a man is walking down an old, craggy sidewalk on his way to work when he hears a strange noise. He stops by an open crack in the ground to listen, and what he hears is a puppy in distress. Somehow, it got stuck in an abandoned storm drain. Thankfully, there's no grate, and the man is able to rescue the little dog. He crawls through the weeds, deep under the sidewalk, and pulls out a dirty little pup, crying and looking confused. The video has tens of thousands of views, and the channel behind it produced dozens of similar rescue videos, puppies in distress, dirty, mangled, broken, and of course a heroic figure swooping in to save them. Across all their content, the channel has amassed millions of views and hundreds of thousands of subscribers. I watched the video in absolute horror, not because the puppy was in danger, but because something about it didn't feel right. These types of videos are unfortunately very common on all of the popular video streaming platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. At first, it seems perfectly innocent. A group of kittens drowning in a river, a puppy with a broken leg, and an unwitting hero swooping in to save the poor, desperate creature. These videos garner incredible attention, get shared by every grandma with a smartphone. But the terrifying reality is, a lot of these videos are staged. When we watch Rescue the Pitiful Little Dog, there are clear signs that this video isn't genuine. Firstly, the man is already recording. He walks down the street on his way to work without a care in the world when he just happens to stumble upon a puppy whining in a crack in the ground. In fact, he doesn't even stop to find where the whining is coming from. The camera just glides down perfectly to a single half an inch wide crack in the sidewalk. almost like he knew exactly where to look. And then all of a sudden, there's a second camera. Someone else is recording him rescuing the puppy. Not only do we never see this person behind the camera, I thought our hero was on his way to work. Who is this person? Is it a coworker? Well, in a way, it is. You see, oftentimes these videos are coming from economically poor countries. And with the surging popularity of animal videos in the early 2000s, people wanted a way to make some money. And nothing gets as many shares, likes, and comments as animal rescues. Unless you're a robot, watching an animal being saved is going to make you feel something. And that's for the vast majority of people. And you might just want to share that feeling with others. Because of this, animal rescue videos aren't just popular, they're lucrative. Millions of views can equal hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars on certain video sharing platforms. But how often does one find an animal in distress? Well, unless you're working for animal control, not often. I'll ask you this. How many times have you encountered anything like this in your own life? An animal in distress, tucked away under a sidewalk or lost in a storm drain? I bet most people could count on one hand the number of times, and truthfully, it might be zero. So if you're living in a poor nation, and if you want to start a business farming animal rescue videos, how do you do it? Do you wait around hoping to find an animal in distress? No, these people don't wait for danger, they are the danger. They purposefully endanger animals behind the scenes, and once the cameras are rolling, they can swoop in and save them. Here are some other video titles I encountered across many of the still active animal rescue accounts. Rescue the dog tied on the motorcycle. Rescuing a paralyzed abandoned puppy. Rescue 3 poor puppies in a plastic bag. These are not accidental discoveries. They're not spontaneous rescues. They're by design, each of them planned, staged, and recorded to pull at your heartstrings, garner your sympathy, and make a whole lot of money. But it's not just puppies. There are whole hosts of other species being tormented online. Puppies, monkeys, chickens, anything with 4 legs and a heartbeat is being exploited online right now. The most common format is animal abandoned by its owner, which accounts for about 30% of all fake rescue videos, but there are many more that are popular. Formats like an animal is almost attacked by a predator, where a baby animal will be put next to a snake and saved at the last second. Or animal saved from beneath rubble, where the people making the videos literally bury these poor creatures alive, and this sick trend isn't going away anytime soon. I found a Reddit post from 5 years ago listing 44 accounts that were most definitely allegedly producing fake content. Many of them have since been shut down or have rebranded amidst backlash, but some are still alive and kicking, despite the dangerous, disgusting, inhumane content. And there are so many other channels. Once you start looking for similar content, similar rescue videos, it just goes on and on. Anytime one gets shut down, 2 more seemingly take its place. And the horrible part about it is you can never be sure what's real and what isn't. I just recently saw a video of a monkey drowning in a river, getting rescued by a guy on a boat, and I have no idea if it was staged or not. And that's a disturbing thought. That really, there's no verifiable way to sift between the good and the bad. Everything is suspect once you kind of learn this. The type of animal exploitation, fake rescue videos are a rampant issue on all social media platforms. But what if people don't want to see an animal saved? What if they hate that animal so much they'd like to see it hurt, injured, maimed, even killed? Well, that's when we get into another type of animal endangerment, and a group so disgustingly evil it boggles my mind. The monkey haters. In 2024, a documentary titled Free Minnie was broadcasted on the BBC. It tells the real-life story of Minnie, a female long-tailed macaque. and how she was saved from her years of brutal captivity. In 2022, a woman named Kapetinich had just finished a long day of work, was browsing through recommended videos on social media when she discovered a cute monkey video. She watched it, liked it, and went to bed. The next day, more monkey videos, this time in funny costumes, doing unnatural tasks, playing, dancing, juggling, what have you. Before long, her feed was nothing but monkeys, and the content slowly became more and more disturbed. Monkeys getting slapped, sprayed with water, and one monkey being physically brutalized. That monkey was Minnie. The lady ended up in contact with another man, Dave Guptar, who had also taken note of the monkey haters in their horrible, inhumane videos. They shared their knowledge and became something of a team. They tried to find similarities between videos, but the more they watched, the further they dug, the more despicable it became. Monkeys weren't just being injured, not anymore. Some were being killed. And the people watching, the sick audience of thousands, were loving it. But one monkey appeared in more content than all of the others. Her name was Minnie. She was just a baby, and she was seen in countless videos being hurt ruthlessly. Seeing this poor, innocent baby being hurt and exploited for entertainment was too much to bear. They had to do something. Together, the duo approached animal activist Nina Jackal. She knew about Minnie, but she didn't know the full extent of what was happening. When she saw the content being produced on social media, she was both horrified and enraged. Nina began her own investigation. She discovered that every once in a while, in the comments, people were offering to pay the man who was hurting Minnie, and the response was always the same: add me on Telegram. Now, for those of you who don't know, Telegram is like the Tor browser, but for private messaging. It's meant to be completely private and keep your messages hidden, even from service providers. She followed the breadcrumbs and discovered that there were entire dark web forums dedicated to buying and selling content on Telegram. Much worse than anything available on social media, drownings, or flat out murder. And this wasn't one man creating these videos. There were multiple across nations who made a living torturing innocent animals. I mean, how messed up is this? One of the largest brokers of these horrible videos, the self-proclaimed king of brutality, was a man from the United States called Mike McCartney, a 48-year-old former motorcycle gang member of the Aryan Brotherhood, and card-carrying Confederate sympathizer. He had taken a liking to the monkey videos, especially Minnie. He spent his day selling videos, disturbing videos among customers, and he made a good amount of money doing it. But even he wasn't at the top of the food chain when it came to monkey haters. Mike McCartney operated on a Telegram channel called Ape's Cage, ran by the mysterious Mr. Ape. Mr. Ape ran the communications between buyers and vendors and created some videos himself. He would ask for ideas from the community, what tools to use. But his most popular video involved a blender. Absolutely horrible, disgusting, morally reprehensible human beings. But while most monkeys died, Minnie survived. Minnie lived to see her first birthday, and for that, she was a celebrity amongst monkey haters. She was the sadistic trophy of their community, said Mike McCartney. The Babe Ruth, the Marilyn Monroe, the Elvis. In this demented little circle of ours, that was Minnie. Eventually, by looking for commonalities in the videos, they were able to identify some of the perpetrators. Police agencies in multiple countries were contacted to track down and arrest these individuals. And one by one, they were all taken offline. By tracking the flow of money after each arrest, they eventually found Mr. Ape. And although we don't know his name, we know he was a Florida man in his mid-20s, and he had been running his sick Telegram since the time he was in college. and Minnie's owner was finally arrested. For Minnie the monkey, we don't know exactly what happened to her over those years in captivity. At least I'm not looking for those videos because I don't want to know personally. But we do know her injuries at the time of her owner's arrest: broken jawbone, missing teeth, bruises, scars, and intense psychological trauma. Today we know that Ape's cage has been disbanded. The broker, Mike McCartney, is facing heavy prison time, as well as other distributors. And many of the monkey hater content creators have been arrested and charged. But just like the fake rescue videos, this all boils down to one major point. This content isn't dead. At the end of the day, these two stories are just the tip of the iceberg. While social media platforms attempt to regulate this type of content, sometimes it slips through the cracks. And as criminals get smarter, it gets harder and harder to stop people like this. For both of these stories, the rabbit hole goes much deeper than just this information. It's basically endless. You could spend days going deeper and deeper into the sadistic, secretive networks of animal exploitation rings online, but at least for me, I won't be going any deeper anytime soon. Love has won. Amy Carlson was born on November 30th, 1975 in McPherson, Kansas. She was a child of divorce, splitting her time between Kansas and Oklahoma City. Amy was described as smart from an early age. She did well in school, always had good grades, sang for the school choir. But while her academics were thriving, behind the scenes, her home life was falling apart. After years living with her father, an abusive stepmother, the pain became too great. And so Amy moved in with her mother, eventually relocating to Texas. Here she wanted to begin her new life, but above all, she wanted love, affection, the all-American nuclear family. But Amy had trouble keeping relationships. She'd meet a man, they'd have a child, and then they'd break up. By the time Amy was 30 years old, she had been married 3 times and had 3 beautiful children. She supported them by working as a manager for McDonald's, but she wasn't happy. She neglected her children, and after her 3rd child was born, she began to distance herself from the family unit she fought so hard to create. Why? Well, around this time, she started getting involved in New Age religion, which I'd categorize here as a more radical form of spirituality. Think holistic medicine, crystals, and tarot, but for Amy, she took it to another level. She believed in multiple dimensions of spirituality, like metaphysical dimensions, soul reincarnation, the healing power of loving energy, which, to be fair, some of this isn't very strange. Many Eastern religions are built on these same beliefs, but her beliefs were evolving. Online, she met a male called Amaranth White Eagle. See what I'm saying? And he convinced her that she was divine. Amy wasn't some mortal working at McDonald's. No, she was Mother God, a being that had been alive for as long as time. Someone that had reincarnated into many bodies. The Hawaiian god Pele, Cleopatra, Jesus, Harriet Tubman. She claimed that in a past reincarnation, Donald Trump was her father, and before that, Elvis Presley was her son. Eventually, in 2007, she had become so convinced of her otherworldly spiritual powers, she abandoned her life, went no contact with her 3 children and her family, and disappeared to Colorado to be with her muse. Together, Amy and White Eagle would form a new religious group. And when I say group, I mean cult, called the Galactic Federation of Light. Now, before I continue, I want to make this abundantly clear. We're going to hear a lot about Amy throughout this story, and she does some weird things, some irresponsible things, and some downright dangerous things. But I want us to remember, this is a sick woman. She was influenced by White Eagle, who I'm sure was influenced by someone else, and all of them were influenced by a whole lot of drugs. So I'm not discounting the gravity of her actions. I'm just saying she was just as much a victim as she was a perpetrator. Even her daughter, when later interviewed, wants us to remember Amy as a human being who was sick, not just a crackpot cult leader. And I think it's important to make that clear. Moving on, she moves to Colorado, and together with White Eagle, they create a website. Weekly, they post about their doctrines, taking the moniker Mother and Father God, while their partnership in the Galactic Federation was purely managerial. Behind the scenes, they were heavily romantic, and in 2009, they posted their first YouTube video. Truth is a brilliant symphony. The message is very difficult to follow. Amy Carlson's Mother God, hosting convoluted talks about truth, God, angels, the universe, energy, and atoms. Now, over the course of many more videos, we begin to understand her evolving beliefs in better detail. Amy Carlson was 19 billion years old, a deity called Mother God, and had birthed all of creation. Father God was her second-hand man, and sometimes her lover. She accessed the fifth dimension via contact with the Galactics, a communication of dead celebrities like Robin Williams and Whitney Houston, who served as dimensional spirit guides. She had been reincarnated 534 times, and the job of her current incarnation was to lead exactly 144,000 people to salvation in her mysterious fifth dimensional heaven. And soon enough, the group had its first passenger, Miguel Lamboy. Miguel was the first person to support the Galactic Federation, and he took a special interest in Amy and the inner workings of her spiritual vessel. He would become the group's logistics director, managing the finances. The admittance of her first follower began a long cycle for the Galactic Federation under Amy's control. She would frequently eject people who didn't fit her doctrine or those who didn't agree with her, and this complete control became very toxic and dangerous very fast. When the group joined TinyChat, a website where you can create custom chat rooms accessed by random people, the Galactic Federation of Light began to develop a larger following. And this pattern of Amy's controlling, dictatorial nature began to rear its ugly head. Here's an excerpt from a Redditor who had a first-hand account with the group early on, and the post reads as follows. I first met Amy back in 2013 through the Galactic Free Press and TinyChat platform. Back then, LHW did not exist yet, but the cult-like recruiting tactics were being developed. Miguel Lamboy, who went by Michael Silver, had an administrative presence along with Amy and a few others. Many of us would join online together nightly to share spiritual videos, music, meditations, etc. Honestly, we weren't there because of Amy. We just enjoyed the interactive platform. It was a fun hangout with like-minded people from around the world. We initially tolerated Amy and the first Father God's controlling mechanisms. They would temporarily block you or kick you out of the chat room if you said anything that was contrary to their thinking. But the most interesting and engaging conversations and interactions almost always took place once Amy had left the chat for the night. I had a few one-on-one Skype encounters with Amy. Sadly, I saw right through the con that was developing. Amy even invited me to join her in Dunsmuir, California, which I declined. In late 2013, as the Galactic Federation scene started to devolve into a more cultish setting, I went out and started my own spiritual TinyChat. About 20 or so people followed me over there from GFP. Amy and her followers would daily try to get us to rejoin her. As per this user's story, Amy began to develop a new personality. Gone were the days of innocent spirituality and happy-go-lucky values. No, her rule was becoming stern and absolute. If someone didn't align with her beliefs, she expelled them or blocked them, ostracized them from the community. But that was just online. Around this time, she gained a second follower, Andrew Profasi, who wanted desperately to worship Amy. The two began a romantic relationship, and before long, Amy expelled Amarith White Eagle, the first father god, and replaced him with Andrew. Just like that, the man who started it all, the one who had filled Amy's mind with delusions of grandeur and elevated purpose, was abandoned by Her Majesty, his mother god, and the delusion he created developed a life of its own. With the help of Miguel Lamboy and her new, more obedient father god, the group began to expand. People from across the country made the migration to join the goddess reincarnate. People we'd later see on live streams and in community videos, Hope, Aurora, Faith. Together, they traveled from Colorado to Oregon to California, spreading their ridiculous gospel to anyone that would listen. The desperate, the defunct, the lame, and the lonely. A small convent of lost, gullible souls to poison with her doctrine. But she couldn't do it with the same old ideas she developed with White Eagle. No, she wanted a fresh start. Though the same spiritual hierarchy remained, with Amy at the top of the pyramid, the optics had changed, and the Galactic Federation of Light became the now infamous, fully formed Love Has Won cult. Amy implemented new rules for the group: no drinking, no smoking, a strict dietary plan, and an even stricter sleep schedule. Members of Love Has Won were only allowed to sleep for 4 to 5 hours a day. In many videos, followers can be seen falling asleep as other members attempt to shake them awake, but they scarcely do. The group called this spiritual discipline, but from the outside, it began to look more like torture. These types of strict rules are common among cults, frequently cited as brainwashing tactics. Followers are more likely to be obedient if their freedoms are revoked, and their reliance becomes upon the group itself. If you wanted to join Love Has Won, you had to leave your family completely. These tactics amassed them a group of approximately 15 to 20 who lived with Amy, and whatever father god was present at the time, moving from state to state. And because of their recent expansion, they needed more money, and they made it selling holistic medicine online, including colloidal silver. Now, colloidal silver is typically sold for its healing properties. At least, that's what it would be sold for, if it had any healing properties. In fact, colloidal silver has no bodily purpose, no recognized function, isn't an essential mineral, and when consumed, it does nothing but wreak havoc, inside and out. Consistent consumption is considered dangerous, and although it's technically legal, the CDC does not condone its consumption. That being said, people continue to sell it for its mystical, spiritual, non-existent healing properties. The group also made many claims to improve people's health without the use of meditation. Love Has Won promoted their ability to pray away cancer, chronic illness, depression. Of course, selling false remedies and prayer cures will ultimately garner the attention of the public. And before long, Amy and her followers were facing heavy backlash. But not just for their snake oil sales, they also publicly held beliefs in many conspiracy theories, ones that, frankly, tend to piss people off, believing that most American tragedies were hoaxes staged by the government's lesser energy minions. Needless to say, people have never and will never resonate with these extreme claims. And for those cities and towns hosting Love Has Won, they didn't enjoy having a cult in their community to brainwash young, feeble minds into joining their ranks. In 2020, Amy and the Love Has Won group briefly moved to Kauai in Hawaii, where she publicly claimed to be Pele, the Polynesian goddess of volcanoes, fire, and creation. Shortly after their arrival, locals began to protest. It was a hostile, angry environment. This random white woman came onto their property and proclaimed herself as one of the most revered deities in their culture, and the native Hawaiians were not having it. They feared, like so many others, the cult would attempt to indoctrinate their friends and family too, which of course they did attempt to do. Protesters began lighting driftwoods on fire, and chanting prayers around the rental property the group was staying in. As the days continued, the protesters grew less patient and more violent. They began throwing rocks and eggs at the windows of the property. Group member Lauren Soares, who I referred to earlier by her chosen name, Aurora, captured video footage of the attack and the resulting broken window. It got so bad, the mayor of Kauai had to come and broker a negotiation between the two groups, eventually leading to the departure of Love Has Won from the island. And just like that, the group had returned to Colorado. In the year that followed, Amy's presence online became less and less frequent. Witnesses noticed her health was declining. She was getting thinner, smaller, quieter. Something was clearly wrong. But Amy sought no solutions to her obvious medical issue. As the weeks turned to months living with this illness, she became paralyzed from the waist down, and her skin became blue. As her health declined that December, on New Year's Eve, Amy had a conversation with her sister over Skype, who noted that Amy looked awful. Amy, in response, told her sister that she had cancer. It was the first time the pair had spoken in many years. And little did her family know, it was the last time they would hear from Amy ever again. In early April of 2021, the group relocated to an RV camp in Mount Shasta, Northern California, attempting to find new footing in different area, but were asked to leave due to overcrowding. After this, they made their final migration back to the Love Has Won mission house near Crestone, Colorado. On the journey, the group made a chilling Facebook post stating, "She has ascended," and the Love Has Won website was taken offline. In late April of 2021, Miguel Lamboy, head of finance at Love Has Won, contacted the police, saying that something awful had happened to Amy. When police arrived at the mission house, they discovered the unthinkable. Amy wasn't just dead. She had been mummified. Judging by the state of decay, she had died sometime during the trip back to Colorado, several weeks earlier. The group had wrapped her in a sleeping bag, tied it with Christmas lights, and covered her face in glitter, a final makeshift shrine to the empty vessel of their mother god. When asked what it was like transporting the corpse from California to Colorado, without any way of stopping the decomposition, the group responded, "You could smell God everywhere." But how did she die? Well, the corpse was blue-gray in color, and a photo taken just a little before death showed her emaciated blue-gray body, just barely clinging to life. Amy Carlson died from complications as a result of taking large amounts of colloidal silver. The same remedy she had peddled to countless others was the thing that killed her. 7 members of the group were charged with gross disrespect of a corpse, spending only a couple of weeks in jail before the charges were dropped. And Miguel Lamboy, the man responsible for the group's success, disappeared with the remaining $300,000 in the Love Has Won accounts. Today, the group is fractured. Group member and live streaming coordinator Aurora abandoned the original YouTube channel and created a spiritual successor called 5D Full Closure, which continued to post videos until August of 2025. Several other members have started popular social media accounts or businesses, but none to this day have reached the infamy that Love Has Won garnered. And I hope for the sake of others, they never do. But what I just covered isn't even half the story. There are so many more details we couldn't include, even with a full treatment. Hundreds of first-hand accounts, thousands of hours of video. There's actually a great documentary by HBO about it, but even they didn't have the runtime to discuss every detail. Needless to say, this rabbit hole goes deep, and the depths of the Love Has Won madness seemingly has no end. And alright guys, that wraps up some horrifying internet rabbit holes. What did you think about today's video? I thought these were horrifying rabbit holes, to be honest. These were depressing, sad, and just so horrible. I feel so horrible for all the victims involved. Comment down below what you thought about this video. Leave your feedback down below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know. Follow me on Spotify, follow me on Instagram, all that jazz. And if you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'll enjoy other videos on the channel, so please check those out. And I just want to say thank you so much for watching. It means the world. And this was Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Some of the most disturbing events in history were recorded on tape, and then the tapes disappeared, erased, destroyed, locked away forever. Not because nothing happened, but because what did happen was too disturbing to ever be seen. Today, we're covering the cases where missing footage changed everything. A preschool investigation that spiraled into mass hysteria, a live stream watched by hundreds that ended in death, a movie scene that went wrong and was buried, and a legendary stage performance whose final moments were never released. If you enjoy videos like these, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's get into some horrifying lost media. The McMartin Preschool Trial. August 1983, Manhattan Beach, California. A small, simple building with a rudimentary playground, intimate classrooms, and a little sign hung up at the entrance painted in old Western lettering, which read, McMartin Preschool. It was founded by Virginia McMartin, and together with her daughter, Peggy, and grandson, Ray Bucky, they ran the daycare without incident for 28 years. Nothing exciting had ever happened. Until 1983, when one accusation turned the school's reputation on its head. According to a woman named Judy Johnson, whose son attended daycare at McMartin, he had begun to experience painful bowel movements, and she believed her son was being harmed at school by his teacher, Ray Bucky. But the fear didn't come out of nowhere. You see, this was in the heat of the Satanic Panic, a worldwide phenomena where people believed that Satanists were endangering their communities, and Judy Johnson believed her son was exploited by Ray Bucky for his own sick satanic pleasures. She would make several more accusations, including daycare workers having inappropriate contact with animals, and claiming that Ray flew in the air, which of course is insane, but the public didn't seem to think so, and neither did the police. The investigation began immediately. Ray Buckley was interviewed and questioned for hours, but at the end of the day, there was no proof, no medical records, no history of abuse. The only adult witnesses would have been his family, who surely would lie on his behalf, so the only witnesses left were the children. On September 8th, 1983, just one day after Ray Bucky's arrest, the Manhattan Beach Police Department sent out a bulletin to over 200 parents of students, former and current, that read, Dear parent, this department is conducting a criminal investigation. Ray Bucky, an employee of Virginia McMartin's preschool, was arrested September 7th, 1983 by this department. The following procedure is obviously an unpleasant one, but to protect the rights of your children, as well as the rights of the accused, this inquiry is necessary for a complete investigation. Records indicate that your child has been or is currently a student at the preschool. We are asking your assistance in this continuing investigation. Please question your child to see if he or she has been a witness to any crime or if he or she has been a victim. Our investigation indicates that possible criminal acts include, and I have to change this because it was pretty graphic, but basically touching the students in their no-no square under the pretense of taking the child's temperature. Pretty disturbing stuff. Also, photos may have been taken of your student in their no-no area as well. Any information from your child regarding having ever observed Ray Bucky to leave a classroom alone with a child during any nap period, or if they have ever observed Ray Bucky tying someone up, is important. Please complete the enclosed information form and return it to this department in the enclosed stamped return envelope as soon as possible. We will contact you if circumstances dictate same. We ask you to please keep this investigation strictly confidential because of the nature of the charges and the highly emotional effect it could have on your community. Please do not discuss this investigation with anyone outside your immediate family. Do not contact or discuss the investigation with Raymond Buckey, any member of the accused defendant's family, or employees connected with the McMartin preschool. There is no evidence to indicate that the management of Virginia McMartin's preschool had any knowledge of this situation, and no detrimental information concerning the operation of the school has been discovered during this investigation. Also, no other employee in the school is under investigation for any criminal act. That little annotation at the end is completely correct. There was no evidence, no indication that any crime had been committed from either Ray or the faculty. It was a he said, she said case from the start. But the actions of the police department make it abundantly clear. They weren't looking to exonerate him. They weren't even looking to investigate him. In their minds, he was already guilty. The organization that hosted the interviews that interviewed the kids was called Children's Institute International, an LA-based abuse therapy clinic run by American social worker Key McFarlane. And what they did was an affront to medical science. In the hunt for the supposed crime, they created the crime. In the heat of the satanic panic, normal, everyday people were more susceptible to fear. They believed something was happening, and they needed proof, no matter the cost. The people interviewing the kids ended up asking them suggestive questions, or leading questions. These are questions that not only justify the interviewer's own bias, but these kind of statements skew the perspective of the interviewee. For instance, instead of asking, "What happened at school?" they'd ask, "He violated you, didn't he?" Not much room for interpretation. Not much room for alternative facts or new perspectives. That's a yes or no. And if someone said no, they'd reword that same question over and over in 100 different ways until the answer was yes. And once they got that yes, it was a wrap.
Raymond Buckey, his sister Peggy Ann, their mother Peggy McMartin Buckey, grandmother Virginia McMartin, and 3 teachers were all charged with sentencing 18 children at the McMartin preschool.
By the end of the interviews, 360 children were apparent witnesses to the crimes of Ray Buckey. And according to them, he did more than kill a horse. The children had also seen witches flying in the air. They'd traveled by hot air balloon on occasion, were taken deep underground through a network of tunnels beneath the school, taken to parties at airports and car washes, and one even claimed to have entered a secret room by being flushed down a toilet. And I am seriously not making any of this up. This was the bulk of the accusations. That is, of course, excluding the physical aspects of the crimes. 360 children, 360 testimonies, physical injury, exploitation, warped supernatural stories. Most of those interviewed were photographed without their clothes, not by doctors, but by a quote-unquote medical examiner who identified tiny scars or pieces of skin that supposedly indicated systemic abuse. And all of these interviews were taped. Every single one. Days worth of footage. Lie after lie. They recorded each child, hypnotized into lying about a single man, interrogated for hours on end, regurgitating the ludicrous, imaginary scenes, fed to them by a scared community of unqualified, irresponsible idiots. And during this period, Ray Buckey was still in jail, where he would remain for another 5 years while the lies piled up. Day after day, more evidence would come forward. Another child, another story, another evidence of his monstrosity, and he would have to wait longer, rotting in a cell while the investigators hammered in nails. And there's more. During the pre-trial, Judy Johnson, who made the original accusation, was hospitalized for acute paranoid schizophrenia. All of the testimony she made, all of the accusations that started this snowball of chaos, fear, and consequences were made by a mentally ill woman. And to me, that's incredibly sad. Not only was Ray Buckey falsely imprisoned because of these claims, but if officials cared enough to question her a little more, they would have realized she was ill. And she might have gotten help, but she didn't. And in 1986, before the preliminary hearing concluded, Judy Johnson died of chronic alcoholism. The preliminary hearing lasted 20 months, and in the end, Ray Buckey was acquitted on all charges.
Trial.
As to counts 3,
On January 18,
count
1990,
8, count 9, count 12,
after 124 witnesses,
count 14,
1,000 pieces of evidence,
count 56, count 57,
and $15 million of taxpayers' money,
59,
the longest and most expensive criminal trial in U.S. history came to an end.
we, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the very defendant not guilty.
The case lasted 7 years and cost 15 million taxpayer dollars. But we aren't here to talk about how ridiculous this case is. You can see that for yourself. No, we're here to talk about the tapes. And although the tapes no longer exist, I found a transcript from the McCarthy trial and a Dr. Michael Maloney testifying on his experience watching 40 of the tapes. Here are a couple of quotes from the transcript, edited for decency. In almost all cases, the interview started with drawing a picture that was typically outlined by the interviewer. After that, there was a procedure where they went into naming body parts, the specific focus being on the private parts. There was then an introduction of so-called anatomically correct dolls, with the focus again on the private parts of the dolls. There was an introduction of pictures of students and teachers from the school, where persons were identified by the examiner and by the child, with specific focus on certain teachers in the school, and sometimes the child himself. There was an introduction of puppets as a method of presenting information. There was an introduction of the nature of these dolls, that they were dolls that you could not find in a store. There was an introduction of variously referred to yucky, sneaky, and tricky games. There was an introduction of Ray Buckey being a bad person, surveilled by police. There was an introduction of bodily functions in terms of Ray Buckey, and what that might look like, and so forth. Those items were in almost every case here and in many others as well. The defense asked the doctor about reinforcement. How was it done? And the doctor says this: if a child were to have identified a private part of the drawing, the dolls were then introduced, and the interviewer say, "What was this part again?" If they answered correctly, the reply would be, "Great, you're smart. You're really a smart kid." That's the reinforcement, as well as this. There is an implication, if not a statement, that there is something wrong. At this point, from the children, we don't know if there's anything wrong or not, but saying, "These dolls help us figure out some of these things," presents the idea that there is something that needs to be figured out. So that's a strange setting behavior as well. There's ground laid out, we're going to have to work on something here. In some of the tapes, there's something much more specific, saying that negative things happened. There are words like yucky used very frequently in these statements. We're using the dolls as an intermediary. The dolls will help us figure it out. This is where you could really get into the risk of a fantasy problem. You are removing responsibility from the child. You're not saying to that child, "I want you to tell me what you know." You're saying, "We can use the dolls. They'll help us." The McCarthy preschool trial is one of the most horrifying American witch hunts in our modern day. The fear of Satanism put an innocent man in jail for 5 years, with no recourse for the lies told against him. In my opinion, everyone was a victim in this case. Not just Ray Buckey, but 360 innocent children, subject to intense interrogation, in whose very minds were warped and molded into engines of fantasy. What should they think as they grow up? What's real? What isn't? The feelings of guilt, shame, and confusion must have been so immense for these students. And although the tapes have been destroyed, we can only imagine what kind of damage they dealt on their unwitting participants. Abraham Biggs. On November 19th, 2008, a 19-year-old boy named Abraham Biggs opened his computer and made a post on a forum he visited every day. The title read, "Ask a guy who is going to OD tonight anything." Inside the thread, Abraham listed the drugs he planned to take, wrote a brief note about what he was dealing with, and shared a link to a Justin livestream, an early internet streaming site. He wasn't joking. He was inviting people to watch. As the minutes ticked on, more and more people joined Abraham's live stream. These were the people he considered family. "I know it's kind of sad," Biggs wrote. He felt he couldn't talk about his troubles offline. He didn't want to bother anyone, but he felt comfortable talking with the family he'd made on bodybuilding. In fact, he had posted about wanting to end things a couple times on the site, and today he was going to commit. Before long, hundreds of people were watching the live stream. Abraham had a laundry list of medications in front of him, but he hadn't taken any yet. He was waiting to talk it through, and as his family from Bodybuilder joined the stream, they encouraged him to do it, laughed at him, coaxed him on. Those people who actually wanted him to live didn't know what to do, where he was, or who to call. And while the small few worked to save his life, the rest were content with watching. Like a man on the ledge and the crowd below, these people wanted him to jump, a poor, sad boy who needed help in the comfort of his community, encouraged to end it all. Abraham swallowed a handful of medications. He laid down for his final rest and never woke up. Eventually, a site moderator managed to contact emergency services, but when they arrived at the residence, Abraham Biggs was already gone. According to investigators, the chat was still live with a little less than 200 people, and most were expressing their shock or their amusement. They turned off the camera as the chat log rolled on. OMG, LOL. It had been 12 hours since his initial post. Now, I just want to say, this story completely broke my heart. It was unnecessary, completely preventable, and the fact people were sitting around encouraging him to do it is disgusting. Beyond disgusting. The people who encouraged him are monsters and cowards, plain and simple. A 19-year-old boy needed help, and the people he called family pushed him over the edge. And I'd like to say I can't believe people would act like this, but I can. The internet is a hole sometimes, and it's the sad truth. I'm not surprised. His father was of a similar mindset. As a human being, you don't watch someone in trouble and sit back and just watch. Now, on Justin, the live streaming site he was live streaming on, all of the live streams were recorded. They had an automatic archiving feature that would save live streams as videos, and Abraham's video was saved. We don't know how long the footage was up, but it was later removed by Justin after heavy backlash and destroyed. It no longer exists on the internet, and for good reason. CEO Michael Seibel stated, "We regret that this has occurred and respect the privacy of the broadcaster and his family during this time. We have policies in place to discourage the distribution of distressing content, and our community monitors the site accordingly. This content was flagged by our community, reviewed, and removed according to our terms of service." He also encouraged viewers to be more vigilant and active in the future. So, at least officially, the video no longer exists. The company doesn't either, as a matter of fact. It would later become Twitch. But the memory of Abraham Biggs lives on, a haunting reminder of what people are capable of and the depravity of the internet when left to its own devices. The Crow. November 27th, 1940, San Francisco, California. A Chinese-American boy is born under the name Li Jun Fan His father was an opera singer and had traveled to the States for an opera tour in Chinatown. Given his US birth, he was a citizen, and after a string of messy teenage fights in Hong Kong and his father's brutal opiate addiction, he, at the age of 18, moved to Seattle, Washington. Here, he would continue training in martial arts and become one of the biggest movie stars of all time, single-handedly bringing martial arts to an American audience and becoming the first Chinese-American superstar. While his birth name is Lee Junfan, you know him as Bruce Lee, and he was a sensation. Beginning his career on the television show The Green Hornet, Bruce Lee was responsible for popularizing Wing Chun, a Chinese martial art that focuses on close-range, hand-to-hand combat. He was asked to fight more like an American, but he refused. And the style he showcased was so incredibly popular and foreign to American audiences, it wasn't long before he was showcasing those same skills in other hit movies. The Big Boss, Fist of Fury, Way of the Dragon, Game of Death. Of his 8 biggest movies, they grossed an incredible $740 million, or approximately $4 billion adjusted for inflation. And that isn't shocking, considering, well, the guy was a powerhouse. According to his contemporaries, Bruce Lee's style of fighting was so fast, it couldn't be seen on camera. He had to slow it down for audiences. He was a master of martial arts, one of the most valuable entertainers of his day, and gained global recognition for it. But unfortunately, his star was fading. On May 10th, 1973, Bruce Lee collapsed during an ADR session for one of his movies and died at the hospital. Several of his movies were released posthumously, and Hollywood went into mourning. Who could replace the wickedly talented martial artist? Who could fill such big shoes? Well, thankfully, another Lee was coming of age. Bruce Lee's son, Brandon Lee. Bruce had taught his son everything he knew about martial arts, and by the age of 5, Brandon was capable of kicking through a 1-inch wooden board. As a child, he attended his father on set and became interested in the movie industry, and by the time he was in his early teens, he decided to become an actor. After his father's death, Brandon was determined to continue his father's legacy, and although he found some minor success doing smaller films like Showdown and Little Tokyo, he didn't achieve mainstream financial or critical success. The studios and the public didn't know if Brandon was capable of achieving the same success as his father, so Brandon waited patiently, picking up smaller roles, until he got his big break. The Crow. Written by James O'Barr after the unexpected death of his wife, The Crow was a comic book release series released in 1989, and before long, it was an underground hit. The plot of the story is a little convoluted, so I'll boil it down to the fundamentals. A rocker named Eric Draven and his fiancée are brutally assaulted and killed, and 1 year later, Eric is resurrected by the spirit of the Crow and goes on a revenge mission to kill all the people who killed his fiancée. It's a macabre, supernatural superhero thriller. The actual conception of the film was complicated. Originally, when it was first being pitched to studios, the first major studio approach ended in a withdrawal because they wanted it to be a musical starring Michael Jackson, which is crazy, but it was the 90s. Eventually, it made its way to New Line Cinema, who wanted the film to star either Christian Slater or River Phoenix. In development, it was discussed bringing in Brandon Lee to star, but the author, James O'Barr, didn't see it. He didn't think Brandon was right for the role. He didn't believe Brandon could reach deep and dig for the gritty character he'd written. Eventually, Brandon convinced him, dropping 20 pounds to star as Eric Draven, and after months of debate, he'd gotten the role. The Crow was going to be Brandon Lee's big break. It was a big title with a principal role, and it would break Brandon out from the martial arts typecast. They began filming in February of 1993, and in March of that same year, just a month after they began shooting, tragedy struck. Brandon was filming a scene where his character, Eric, is shot after witnessing the assault and murder of his wife. In the scene, actor Michael Massey's character, Funboy, shoots Eric with a .44 Magnum as he walks in the room, and for this particular scene, they would need a close-up of the gun. Now, typically, the guns we see in film and TV aren't real. At least, most aren't. When guns are shot in close-up, they will sometimes use real guns, but the ammunition will be fake. These fake rounds of ammunition are called dummy rounds. Essentially, they are real bullets, but with no powder or primer, meaning when the gun goes off, it doesn't fire, but it looks realistic, because it is, in essence, real. Normally, production would purchase commercial dummy bullets for a scene, but given the tight shooting schedule and an even tighter budget, production elected to make the dummy bullets themselves. They did this by pulling the bullets from live rounds, dumping the powder, and reinserting the bullet, but the primer remained. For those of you who aren't familiar, the primer is essentially a small explosive. When the gun is triggered, it ignites the primer, which in turn ignites the powder, which sets off the gun. Now, without the powder, it wouldn't fire an actual bullet, but if the gun were fired, the primer has enough force to launch the bullet. Not far enough to leave the barrel, but just enough to get it stuck. 2 weeks before the scene, witnesses reported seeing an unsupervised actor firing that gun with the homemade dummy rounds. And all of this led to the fatal day. The lights were hot, the set was decorated, actors flooded the soundstage, and with the call of action, the cameras began to roll. Michael fired the gun at Brandon Lee, which was primed with blank rounds. Now, these rounds are different. Blank rounds are rounds of ammunition with powder and primer, just no bullet. But the prop supervisor hadn't checked the gun, and in the barrel was the stuck bullet from 2 weeks earlier. So with primer, powder, and now a bullet, Massey pulled the trigger. And to everyone's horror, Brandon Lee was shot square in the abdomen. At first, they didn't realize. Brandon was supposed to fall forwards, but oddly, he fell backwards. When the director, Alex Proyas, yelled cut, Brandon didn't move. He thought Brandon was just acting or playing a joke. That was until someone checked his pulse, and it was dangerously slow. Brandon Lee was rushed to the hospital. Attempts were made to save his life, but they were unsuccessful. And after 6 hours of emergency surgery, Brandon Lee was declared dead. Production debated whether or not to continue the movie, and after months of deliberation and legal obligation, they did. Seeing how Brandon only had 3 more days of shooting to complete, they rewrote part of the script, shot some of his scenes with body doubles and early CGI face replacement, and the movie was complete. The footage of Brandon Lee's death existed for a time but was destroyed after a thorough police investigation, at the request of the Lee family. It will never be recovered. And frankly, it's for the best. The Crow went on to gross $94 million at the box office, which is about $140 million today, and it was Brandon Lee's biggest hit. A cult classic, well remembered, and an undebated success. Rest in peace, Brandon Lee. Siegfried and Roy. Sticking with the theme of entertainment, enter Siegfried and Roy, the power couple magic act that took Las Vegas by storm for almost 40 years. And originally, I wasn't going to include the two magicians, but this story is so insanely good, I just had to include it. Here it goes. First, let's meet the showstoppers. Both Siegfried and Roy were both born in German-occupied Europe under the Stormtrooper armband boy regime. I can't say the group because of YouTube's guidelines, but it's the 1940s in Germany, and the dictator has a funny mustache. You know who I'm talking about. Anyway, both of their fathers were alcoholics, violent, rage-filled soldiers. Siegfried found an escape from his abusive household in the performance of magic tricks. He picked up a book on magic at a young age and practiced all through his adolescence. He enjoyed card tricks, optical illusions, and fun trickery. It brought him joy, making family members laugh and leaving his friends in awe and amazement. Roy, on the other hand, took a liking to animals. He had taken care of his family dog for many years, and with this newfound responsibility, he came to love any creature with 4 legs, and the more exotic, the better. A family friend founded a zoo in Bremen, Germany, so Roy had access to exotic animals from a young age. Eventually, both of them naturalized to the United States and started working on a cruise ship. At the time, they didn't know each other. Roy had taken the job to escape his abusive family, working as a waiter and bellboy, and Siegfried was performing in a small magic show on board. One night, Roy challenged Siegfried to pull a cheetah out of his hat, which obviously Siegfried couldn't do. But the request had intrigued Siegfried, and they met up after the show. The two were enamored by one another. Their chemistry was undeniable, and before long, they were performing together, and people loved them. It was clear early on, their charismatic personas dominated any stage. Eventually, and I'm not making this up, the two were fired from their cruise ship gig for smuggling a live cheetah on board the ship in a laundry bag, which is both hysterical and batshit insane. But you know, this was the 60s. Things were different in the 60s. In 1964, the owner of the Astoria Theater in Roy's childhood neighborhood of Bremen saw the two performing on a Caribbean cruise ship. She loved them immediately and hired them to perform at her nightclub. From there, they had a long and outstanding European career, performing all across the European nightclub circuit. And around this time, they started working with tigers. Siegfried and Roy were known for their big cat shows, specifically the use of white tigers and lions. They were the centerpiece of the magic act, not just visually striking and dangerous, but specially trained to perform. The tigers and lions were just as important as the magicians themselves. They gave the show an almost mythical air, disappearing behind clouds of smoke, jumping through hoops, and defying reality. The two performers weren't your typical circus ringmasters, abusing their animals and beating them into submission. They actually truly loved their big cats. They raised each of them from cubs. Roy would personally cuddle with these animals, take photos, talk to them, and hand feed them. There was a trust built between them, a bond. They were also lifetime conservationists. They ran a private compound with dozens of exotic animals, not just tigers and lions, and they took pride in their respectful symbiotic relationship with the great beasts of prey. In 1967, they were discovered by promoter Tony Azzi and asked to perform in Las Vegas. And the rest is history. They performed across Las Vegas for over 36 years. Casinos opened on the promise that Siegfried and Roy would perform, and the draw they had internationally meant a lot of business for Vegas. Together, the pair earned an incredible $300 million over their career. But it all ended in 2003, when the unthinkable happened. A show began at the Mirage Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. Siegfried and Roy were about to go on, performing for about 1,500 audience members. The crowd was electric. Everyone expected their typical performance, a world-renowned spectacle, dazzling and amazing. But what they got instead was bloodshed. The tiger's name was Manticore. He was a 7-year-old tiger, raised by the duo, and had been performing with them for years. Now, the exact details of the event are widely debated, but what we do know is that, for whatever reason, as they were performing, Manticore missed his mark. He'd never done that before. The stagehands found it odd, in fact. Siegfried and Roy found it odd. Roy tried to redirect him, but the tiger was confused. For whatever reason, he wasn't sure what to do. His behavior was off. Now, maybe it was the crowd, the flashing lights, the applause. Maybe it was just an off day for the 7-foot, 400-pound tiger. But regardless, something was wrong. The tiger was being stubborn. Roy attempted to give Manticore a more direct command by gently pushing the tiger's head. This was a trick he'd used 1,000 times before. Sometimes the animals got confused. They needed more direction. But Manticore wasn't having it. He pushed Roy's hand away, refusing to move. And what happened next is predominantly anecdotal, coming from the audience members who were in attendance. Apparently, Roy tried to signal the tiger again, and this time, Manticore nipped at his hand. Not seeing the danger he was in, Roy attempted once again to get Manticore to move. But Manticore, confused and angry, didn't listen. He bit Roy's wrist. The crowd was confused. They didn't know what was going on, whether or not it was all part of the show, until the music stopped and the stage went silent. Now, Roy had been doing this for years, and he knew this was a dangerous situation. So he took the microphone and smacked the tiger with the rubber head, calling for it to release his hand. Manticore obeyed. The conflict seemed to have ended, but the devastation was just beginning. Attempting to back away, Roy fell on stage, right into the waiting paws of the frustrated Manticore. Now, for those of you who don't realize why this is bad, tigers are instinctual hunters. It didn't matter that Roy had worked with the animal for years. When he fell, the tiger saw him as prey and acted accordingly. Within seconds, Manticore was on top of Roy. The massive tiger bit into Roy's neck and dragged him out of sight. Blood pooled all over the stage. Siegfried jumped into action, trying to get the tiger to release, but Manticore wouldn't budge. Once backstage, the stagehand used fire extinguishers to beat Manticore. And finally, after what felt like years, the tiger let go, running back to his cage. The tiger's teeth had torn Roy's jugular vein, narrowly missing his carotid artery. State medics quickly stopped the bleeding, and all the while, Roy, struggling to breathe, shouted what could have been his last words: "Don't shoot the cat. Don't shoot the cat." A final plea to keep his beloved tiger alive. Roy was rushed to get medical attention. En route to the hospital, he repeatedly called Manticore a great cat and insisted that no harm come to him. Later, he would claim that he had suffered a stroke on stage and that the cat was actually attempting to help him after seeing Roy fall. Over the coming weeks, Roy experienced more stroke-like symptoms and survived damage to his spinal cord from the attack that left him partially paralyzed. Now, like I said, this account of the event is anecdotal. It might not be entirely accurate. It's based on witness testimony because the Mirage refused to release the footage of the attack. That's right, the whole thing was being taped. When asked to release it, they outright refused, only releasing it to Siegfried and Roy themselves, who chose to keep the footage private. As to protect their privacy, that's what they said. I don't know how this constitutes a privacy concern, but whatever. They're cats, their business. But because of this, the footage was never released. And after the attack, the duo stopped performing. Manticore Tiger lived a peaceful life before his death in 2014 at the age of 17. Roy died in 2020, and Siegfried died a year later after being put on hospice for pancreatic cancer. After the attack, the pair attempted to move on, choosing to live a more private life. But no one could forget the terrifying event. It stained their legacy, and today, their magic act is remembered mostly for the horrible event that ended it. And alright guys, that wraps up some horrifying lost media. What did you think about today's video? I thought all the cases in this video were super unique and I've never heard of any of these before. So did you enjoy them? Did you think it was interesting? And if you did, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and check out some other videos on the channel if you enjoyed this. I just want to say thank you so much for watching. It means the world. Please subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Spotify, follow me on Instagram, all that stuff. I appreciate you guys watching. It means the world. And this was Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Mysteries plague the internet. There are endless videos of strange clips, eerie accounts, and unexplained uploads. But sometimes you stumble upon something different. A piece of media so disturbing, it drags you down a rabbit hole. Clue after clue, until you uncover something unimaginably horrifying. From a desperate father searching for his stolen son, to cryptic channels tied to horrific crimes, and to footage that shows people being exploited for profit. Today, we're diving into some horrifying internet mysteries. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And let's get into it. Abzar Akbar. It's a warm, sunny day in Tianshu, China. Late September brings out nearly perfect weather here. There's almost no rain, and the temperature stays in the 70s. The town has beautiful temples, incredible caves, and breathtaking views. And on top of that, it's not a tourist trap. It's far from top destinations like Beijing and Shanghai. So on a wonderful autumn day, Tianshu is filled with residents walking around, getting some shopping done, or enjoying a nice dinner after work. They are living their regular life, not expecting anything out of the ordinary to happen. But Abzar Akbar just arrived from Bangladesh, and his life is anything but normal right now. But this wasn't always the case. Before traveling to China, Abzar had a peaceful life. He taught English as a second language, spent time with his family, and explored his home country of Bangladesh. He was happy, content, and making the most of every day. All of these experiences he wanted to share with the world. And this was back in 2009, when the internet was a little more wholesome, when the average person filmed a home video and posted it online for their friends to see, thinking maybe it'd go viral. Abzar was no different. He posted his first video on February 15th, 2009. He's standing on a hanging bridge in Rangamati, Bangladesh. The camera pans across the lake he's looking out on, small islands spotted in the horizon. The video quality is low, but his enthusiasm is not. Behind the camera, he gives interesting facts about the attraction and encourages people to visit.
Please come and visit. This is Alex here from Chittagong. Goodbye.
Then he spins the camera around and closes out. And he kept posting. He has videos on weddings, birthday parties, and food in Bangladesh. They were just ordinary videos about his culture. But his desire to share was short-lived. He posted 6 videos in 2009 and then disappeared. He went back to work, focusing on his students. The account was dead for 4 years. But his life was not put on hold. In that time, a lot happened for Abzar. His whole world flipped upside down with a new addition. On June 27th, 2010, his baby boy was brought into this world. He named him Washington, hoping that an Americanized name would benefit him in getting a good education. Washington was everything to Abzar, and all they had was each other. Shortly after he was born, Abzar's wife decided she didn't want a family. She didn't want anything to do with it, so she abandoned them. Her reasoning is unknown. All I do know is that this left Abzar overwhelmed. Now all of a sudden he was working full-time, changing diapers, getting his baby to sleep, and making sure he was properly fed. It was a lot at once, and he wasn't expecting it. But none of that really mattered to him. Quote, "Washington is the apple of my eye," he said. He loved him more than he had loved anyone. They were best friends. He couldn't stand to be apart from him. It was a gift to be his father. But still, he wanted his son to have a relationship with his mother. His wife, or maybe his ex-wife at this time, was from Tianshu, China. So he hauled him up there to try and find her. They did this on 3 separate occasions. Each time, he would find his wife's mom or her friends, but not her. He was pissed off. It wasn't fair of her to leave, and he wanted answers. But that was the furthest thing from what he got. On a chilly winter day in early 2013, they were walking around downtown Tianshu. This was the 3rd time they went looking, and he was about to give up. But then, without warning, Washington watched his dad fall to the ground. Someone, a stranger to the child, had pushed him down and continued to beat his father. It all happened so quickly. Abzar had no time to defend himself. He just prayed and hoped that the attack would be over soon. And when it was, he opened his eyes and immediately looked for Washington. But his 3-year-old kid was gone. Nowhere to be seen. In the blink of an eye, disappeared. All of a sudden, Abzar was living in a nightmare. His whole world, his everything, was ripped from his hands. Immediately, he knew who it was. While the perpetrator may have been a stranger to his son, Abzar recognized them. Friends of his ex-wife. She must have sent them. The person who abandoned his family now had torn them apart. He was a wreck, walking around with an empty stroller. not sure where to start in looking for his son. He got the police, desperate for help. He told them everything, how his ex-wife left, it was just the two of them for the last 3 years, how he loves his son more than anything, and he knew she was behind this. But there was a problem. No matter how much he loved his baby, or how beaten up he was, how distressed he wasn't from China. He was a foreigner. So, Chinese police didn't give a shit. It wasn't their problem. They said there was nothing they could do. And that was exactly what they did. Nothing. And Abzar couldn't stay in China long, as his visa would soon expire. He had to tear himself away. If it was up to him, he would stay in Tianshu and look for his son day and night. But he had to go home, and at home he would figure out a plan. And in the next 6 months, that's what he did. He got back to China, stormed into the police station, and demanded their help. His son was kidnapped in their country, so this was their problem. They had to fix it. But it was like arguing with a brick wall. His first video on this was posted about 6 months after the kidnapping, after he had been back in China for 8 days. He's behind the camera, filming an argument between him and 2 officers. There's 2 issues right off the bat. Besides the fact that the police barely let Abzar get a word in, there's also a huge language barrier. Abzar speaks only a little Chinese, and the officers don't speak either of the languages he speaks, Bengali and English. Basically, they're getting nowhere. It's now been 6 months without his son, and Abzar is losing his mind. Law enforcement is doing absolutely nothing to help him, if they can even understand him, and he has to figure out a way to stay in the country for as long as possible, to do everything he can to find his baby. And that, he does. While police sit on their ass, he starts making flyers to distribute around town. He shows this in a video uploaded 2 months after the previous one. Watching it, it's like watching a man fall apart. He starts by walking around town, the flyers in his hand. Front and center is a picture of Washington, smiling at the camera. The first person Abzar walks up to is a young woman with a baby in the stroller. She takes the flyer and looks at it for a moment, while the camera pans over to the kid with her. They look up at Abzar with curiosity, not sure why he seems so upset. The shot lingers on that child for a little bit longer, and the more it does, the more I can feel Abzar's heart breaking, praying that he can have his son the way that woman can have her baby. He continues looking for more people though. The town is busy, and he's talking to everyone he can, hoping that someone, anyone can help. He goes back to the police station, looking for more answers, thinking maybe if he keeps showing up, someone will take him seriously. This argument is just like before though. No one can really understand him, and when they can, they just don't listen to him. Finally, they send him up to a different floor of the station, telling him someone up there will help. When he gets there, they begin to shut down the entire police station. He's enraged now. He starts letting everyone know how sick and tired he is of their treatment, shoving the flyers in their faces, yelling, crying out for help, demanding at the very least sympathy from them, asking over and over what they would do if their son was kidnapped. And they just walk away, ignoring him, barely giving him the time of day. It's cruel, cold, and heartless. But Abzar persisted. He continued to battle with the police, going back again and again, or visiting foreign affairs and looking for an answer there. He tried to figure out ways to work and stay in the country longer, but there was a problem there too. He had previously taught English in China for years, and that employer wouldn't grant him a letter of release, making him unable to find a new job and unable to stay in the country for very long. Again, he went to the police, foreign affairs, anyone to help, and there was nothing. No one gave him a solution or support of any kind. It was just arguments over and over. The whole country was against him. I'm not sure there was much else he could do. It's heartbreaking to think he may have given up, but sadly, we don't know what happened. He posted 6 videos in 2013 about the search for Washington. Then a year later, made a post dedicated to him. When he shared the story of his birth and the slideshow of his favorite pictures of his son, then a couple more random videos on ordinary things from his life, then nothing. Nothing at all. His last video was posted on January 21st, 2015. It's just him filming a piece of hardware he bought for a new business idea, something to show to his students. Not a word about Washington, no hint as to what happened. That was 11 years ago. By now, Washington would be 14 years old, growing up, doing homework, hanging out with friends. Is Abzar getting to watch any of that? If it's even happening? It's terrible, but his son may not be living a happy childhood wherever he went. Or worse, not living at all. These are the thoughts that ran through Abzar's head the longer he was separated from his kidnapped child. The torment he went through as he begged police to reunite them. Going through his videos, it's watching a man go through hell, living in a nightmare he may still be living in. Did Abzar find Washington, or at least find out where he was, or if he was safe? Well, no one has any clue. There are a couple comments on his last video and some posts on Reddit where people talk about this, trying to dig in and find any details that give us an answer. But there's nothing. Just an inactive YouTube channel haunted by this tragedy. Imagine it's 2012 and you're watching YouTube. You've watched hours of epic rap battles, Smosh, and replayed Gangnam Style a couple of times. Before you log off for the night, you come across one more viral video. It's on a seemingly innocent channel, Little Baby's Ice Cream. The thumbnail shows a person covered in ice cream, and the video has a whopping 22 million views, so it's bound to be interesting. And well, it is. Within 5 seconds, anyone watching this is for sure to be freaked out. This person has their eyes open as wide as possible, like bulging out of their head, not blinking at all. As the ice cream drips down their face, they scoop it off and into their mouth, all while they stare into your soul. Then in the back, some creepy music that's being played in reverse. The video is an ad for a legit company, but the whole thing is downright weird. And oh boy, it's about to get even more strange. When 7 years later, someone resurfaced the video. Well, recreating it rather, putting a disturbing spin on it. January 5th, 2018. The first one of these emerges. It's a 34-second clip of an edited version of the ad, posted on a channel called Kinky Little Couple, with the title, People Are Dying 1-2. The creepiness is taken to a whole new level. Everything is slowed down, and the ice cream person now has all of their features removed. They're now just a white animation in front of a purple background. There's music playing, if you can even call it music. It more sounds like someone's stomach grumbling or some sort of weird internal noise. I don't know, that's the best way to describe it. And it's slowed down and really, really freaky. And it's menacing, ominous, and honestly terrifying. Here, give it a listen for a few seconds and just feel how unsettling this entire clip is. And yeah, like I said, disturbing. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. This channel has 217 videos, all posted in early 2018. There's a lot of videos that are variations of that ice cream video. Some are pretty much the same, just different lengths and colors, but then one pops up that literally sent shivers down my spine. It starts out the same, but then there's a deep guttural moaning in the background. It's drawn out. You can't really tell if it's trying to say something or not. It's almost like trying to hear the last words of a dying man. But just as you think it's nothing, then it cuts to black. The video is over. Nothing else. No explanation. No hint as to who Clementine is and why someone is demanding her murder. And by the way, all of these clips have less than 1,000 views. The one I just showed you had like 15 views, which makes it even more unsettling because nobody is watching these videos. I don't know who it's meant for or anything like that. And for these just to be so underground and for no one to even know they exist just makes it that much more unsettling. It feels like I'm not supposed to be watching it. And the questions I have just get bigger and bigger. It's not just the ice cream videos, and it's not just this channel. There's 4 channels that seem to be from the same creator. I Want to Die, Tim Franks, Ben Knox, and the original Kinky Little Couple. All of them post very similar content. Besides the ice cream ads, there's probably 50 videos of clips from JJ's Jet Plane, an animated children's TV show from the 90s. The show by itself is innocent and wholesome, but of course, these aren't normal clips. They've altered the color and everything is pixelated and blurry. All you see is a cartoon plane with a smile flying around as an animated man watches him motionless. He almost looks like a toy soldier. And again, that deep, dark, and menacing background noise. And to top it all off, covering everything, are bold letters that read, "I'm watching you now." It looks like it's from someone's nightmare. And to be honest, guys, while I was researching this video and honestly recording this right now, I have never felt so unsettled and disturbed by a single YouTube channel than I have from this one. All of the videos are just so nightmarish. They are so terrifying, and I have covered numerous internet topics and some of the most disturbing things on the internet, and for some reason, this channel is just freaking me the fuck out. But let's continue. Then another common video found is a British animated PSA against illegal material involving minors. This one isn't edited in a similar fashion. Nothing is slowed down, and there's no deep voice in the background. Obviously though, it's incredibly weird that this channel is posting a PSA of this nature. It doesn't feel random. It feels intentional. In fact, the whole thing feels very calculated. When first looking at all of these channels, it may not seem like that at the first glance. It's hundreds of videos that look the same. It must be some bored, weird kid who discovered iMovie. I mean, that's an easy answer, but they're not all the same. In fact, they're usually different, even if it's in small ways. Why only some of them? It's like a puzzle, a never-ending puzzle. Because whoever this is doesn't stop at YouTube. There's Pinterest and Vimeo accounts under the name Kinky Little Couple, and a WordPress blog. The content here is different. One Vimeo account posts short clips of a solid colored background that slowly changes color as it goes on. That's it. No words, no sound, nothing at all. The other account posts clips from a Britain's Got Talent audition from 2014. The original video is very heartwarming. An 80-year-old woman and a younger man blow the audience away with their salsa dance. But of course, they had to make it weird. Again, they've distorted the color and also put it through some filters so it looks like you're watching it through a funhouse mirror. They've taken audio clips from the performance, but it makes it sound haunted and unsettling. Like you have no idea if you're listening to music or someone screaming under distress. And then there's the WordPress blog. The main header says kinky little couple, but the blog itself is called Dead End with a bunch of random numbers at the end. It's one page, but they've packed in as much as they can on it. It starts out with some stock photos of a happy family, but as you scroll down, it's one picture after another of random old people. There's nothing wrong with these pictures, but why? Some of them are really goofy, like old women making silly faces. In any other context, it'd be totally fine, but this blog post isn't just stock images. There's one post, if you can call it that. It reads, "I found you. Everything is over. Good company makes the way seem shorter. Isaac Walton." At this point, all of this seems so jumbled, like nothing makes sense. It's all a bunch of bullshit trying to scare people, and finding an answer almost starts to feel hopeless. But then there's the Pinterest accounts. And at first, it seems like the same random shit with the same kinky little couple repeated everywhere. Again, pictures of old people, but also lots of animals, hairstyle ideas, and recipes. It's so close to being a normal Pinterest account. But of course, it's not. No. On one of the accounts, the bio says, "There is no excuse for SA." And the account username is "Stop Abusing Young Girls." Finally, it feels like there's a clue as to what the point of all of this is. Well, it doesn't feel like a stretch to assume kinky little couple could be an actual adult content creator. So finding that out feels like the next step. Looking on the more popular adult film platforms, I didn't see an account with that name, but some videos attached to it. Going further through, I found tons of videos on one site that uploads stolen material from an adult content creator woman. So again, no actual account, but all of the videos are tagged as kinky little couple. So there are real people behind the name. It's most likely this girl had an account years ago, but deleted it at some point. Now all that's left is pirated on other sites. But who is she? Well, one user on Reddit found a post on a website that reads, quote, "I was thinking of posting a few people I would love to spend one day with, but to be honest, I only need 2. I'm sure a lot of you haven't heard of her. Maybe you have, but Kinky Little Couple's Anna. She's a beautiful, extremely cute, sweet, lovable, perfect angel to die for." So is Kinky Little Couple Anna? Well, the comments say otherwise. Comments from people that have been digging into this. There are posts on Reddit that claim they found the original Kinky Little Couple account on the Wayback Archive, and there was more information about her, that she was an art student, and that her name is Clementine. Well, wait. You heard that right. Clementine. The girl that voice in the video wants dead. But what's frustrating is that I can't actually see this vital piece of info. Looking up exactly what other users looked up months ago only shows the pirated content, not the page on the Wayback Machine. But at the bottom of the search on Google, it does say this, quote, "In response to multiple complaints we received under the US Digital Millennium Copyright Act, we have removed 3 results from this page. When clicking on one complaint, I see that it was made shortly after these videos started to resurface and gain attention on Reddit." So is the archived account gone? Well, it seems like it, and that's the only verifiable proof of her name. Well, whoever found that name connected to Kinky Little Couple lets the user on the website know, posting, quote, "How do you know her name is Anna? People are saying her name is Clementine," which is a great question. Where did this user even get the idea that her name is Anna? Is there more information that's also being hidden? Well, another comment, quote, "She was forced into doing adult content stuff. She was R-worded, abused, and was locked into her apartment for days. She later committed S-word. But hey, I'm glad your tiny private part feels good. All of these weird, bizarre, and unsettling accounts, is there a victim behind all of it? An innocent girl in need of help? I mean, a comment on a random website for a bunch of pervs isn't exactly evidence, but it's horrifying to think about. And that commenter isn't the only one sharing this. There are multiple posts on not safe for work subreddits that are looking for kinky little couple but can't find any of the videos. Users comment, quote, "Be aware, not only was that girl a minor, but she later committed S-word because of the abuse she was put through by that dude." Someone else says, "Oh, she committed S-word. The guy in this forced all this on her and abused the hell out of her. She was a good friend of mine." Both made by different accounts. One made a year before any of the YouTube videos or anything was released. So, I don't know. 3 comments about this girl being abused, hundreds and hundreds of disturbing videos, a blog with a threatening message. There's something so off about all of this. Of course, the people invested in this have tons of theories. Some say that it's an ARG, or that it's a real couple trying to cover up their intimate history. These do make sense in some ways, but they don't explain everything. At some point with an ARG, the creator reveals what it was. All of this was posted over 7 years ago, and that hasn't happened. And if it was this couple trying to deflect attention off their adult film content, it didn't really work. Everything is so terrifying and absurd that, of course, people are going to look into it. And then eventually they end up on a video they were trying to hide. I mean, it's horrific to think that there could be something evil behind all of this, but there's so many signs that point to that. Besides the obvious fact that there are multiple people saying she's been abused, it's even in the YouTube videos. In the PSA for illegal material involving minors, the narrator starts out the video by saying, quote, "The pictures I look at, the children are smiling. I don't get it when I hear people talk about abuse." Someone might think that when watching Clementine in her videos, she behaves like a normal adult film star, acting out all the things that, you know, adult film stars do. But that doesn't mean that everything's okay. In fact, this could be said for anyone working in adult films, especially young women. Of course, anyone who watches this content wants to believe that everything is consensual and appropriate, but that's just not the case. Many women go into the industry as a last resort or coercion of some kind, and as many as 9 in 10 adult films contain violence in some way, it's only inevitable to think that in that environment, someone is being abused. So no, it doesn't seem like a stretch that kinky little couple, Clementine, whatever you want to call her, could be in trouble. The question is more of who's behind all of this. Is it a stalker, the other person in the couple, or Clementine herself crying out for help? It seems sort of unlikely that it's Clementine herself, but it could be considering how much attention this has brought to her. But it seems more likely that there's someone behind this who has some obsession with her, and they're expressing it in this morbid, terrifying way. Or, like a lot of people are suggesting, it's nothing at all. It's some weirdo trying to get the internet worked up and people are falling right into it. And I can only hope it's as simple as that. TikTok is home to thousands and thousands of videos, including get ready with me's, lip syncing, and dance challenges, or commentary on current events. It's the place so many spend hours doom scrolling before bed. But occasionally, when someone is in too deep on the app, they go beyond their usual harmless videos. They end up on the weird, freaky, and strange side of their algorithm. And once you're there, you're not sure how to get off. This is what happens when users stumble upon an account like Gecka1201 example com2, and I'm just gonna call him Gecka for short. Watching their first couple of videos, nothing seems too out of the ordinary. It seems like it's just a normal account run by a Russian user. The first video is someone filming a man sleeping on a couch and another man fixing a toilet. Based on Google Translate, they seem to only talk about the repair on the toilet. Just another random TikTok video. But things get unsettling the more you watch. The second video is an older man in a pretty much bare room, except for a couch in the corner. The audio in the back is an electronic dance song, something you might hear at a rave. The video is cut up clips of this guy dancing, which I guess seems unsuspicious on the surface, but not if you rewatch a couple of times. He looks exhausted, like he doesn't really know what he's doing. I don't know, he just looks out of it. But the more that I look at this account, I start to see that this video is nothing compared to some others that they've posted. The dancing continues, but it stops being just a feeling that something is off. There is definitely something wrong. It's not just that man anymore. There are a couple different reoccurring people. Sometimes they're dancing, or sometimes they're just sitting, talking, or eating. More often than not, one is dancing and others are in the background. Here's one example that shows how creepy this is. Two men are dancing along to a Russian song. One of the guys seems relatively normal, maybe just a little awkward. But then the other guy, there's something wrong with the other guy. He has a blonde wig on, a bra painted on his chest, and underwear over his pants. It could point to a unique way of self-expressing, but I highly doubt it, because there's also this girl in the back sitting on a wooden chair. She's staring off into the corner, almost like she's trying to avoid looking at the men in front of her. She looks absolutely miserable. She doesn't want to be there. That much is obvious. It makes the whole thing look staged, put together like an act. And if this girl doesn't want to be there, do either of these guys? It sounds crazy, but it feels more realistic the more I look at this account. In some videos, they have buckets over their heads or words painted on their body, and they either look uncomfortable in the background or they're in the front dancing, but look spaced out, like they're not all there. At this point, viewers are confused. The comments are filled with concern. Someone says, "I've said this so many times. I don't think they are okay, but how do we do something about it?" Someone else says, "This is that House of Horrors vibe. Anyone looking into it?" And another says, "Makes me wonder what he's making them do off camera." Users want to help these people immediately. It's not just the tired looks, the forced dancing, and the weird clothes, because if you look closely, these people don't look healthy. Many are covered in bruises, some looking very severe. They're along their faces, their heads, or parts of their body. Yet everyone in the videos pretends like everything is fine. They just keep going, swaying to the music, barely conscious or standing up, spacing out as the camera watches them. It's inhumane to film someone in that state, or worse, to force them to do this. That's not all that's being forced though. In some videos, people started noticing what they're eating. Sometimes it's normal things, like I noticed them having grapes, or often they drink beer. But other times they have bowls in front of them filled with cat food, cat kibble, the dry, brown, tasteless meal that we give to animals. These poor, bruised up, and bone-tired people are not only forced to dance for TikTok, but also to eat cat food. It's beyond sickening. But thank God users were catching on. They're going insane in the comments, trying to figure out ways to contact authorities in Russia and get this shut down. But then some figure out what's going on. And it's not so simple, because these videos are a part of a larger group of videos in Russia, Poland, and Ukraine. It's called trash streaming. It's basically a genre of live streaming where creators will have themselves or someone else do crazy, humiliating, or dangerous behavior in order to get a lot of views. This has led to incredibly tragic incidents, some resulting in death. There was one streamer who was just sick. He poured cold water over his girlfriend's head, locked her outside on the balcony in just her underwear, and left her to die of hypothermia. Then, like the disgusting human he is, he filmed her dead body after he just murdered her for views. So that's what these people are dealing with. Whoever is filming them is a part of this trash streaming culture, and they're forcing these innocent people to do these horrible things to get likes and donations. They are raking in money off their suffering. There's an article circulating on Reddit that talks about some of these extreme trash streaming incidents, including something that happened with the people in these videos. One of the older men was paid to drink an excessive amount of vodka during a live stream. His name was Yuri Dushakin. It's not clear exactly how much he was forced to drink, but it was enough to kill him. He passed away shortly after that. And who knows how long the stream was, but looking at some of the TikToks, people can see timestamps on the laptop of the person behind the camera. Sometimes they'll have been going for 24 hours straight. A whole day without breaks. Only given cat food and vodka. Forced to dance for hours and hours in humiliating clothing and body paint. There is speculation that these people are homeless, possibly living in poverty, and doing this for housing and food in return. Whether that's the case or not, it's still despicable. Everyone is deserving of food and shelter, and shouldn't have to be forced into humiliation and dangerous conditions in order to have them. It's diabolical. Exploiting these people for money, it's beyond cruel. And it's heartbreaking to think that these people may never have gotten help. Many of the trash streamers don't get convicted, and I have a feeling whoever's behind this is no different. In a couple of videos, there's a paper on the wall with a YouTube channel name. The channel's videos are all in Russian, so it's hard to get an idea of what's happening, but it seems to be more podcast-style videos, much different than the TikTok account. But still, it seems whoever was behind Geka is also behind this channel. And while the last TikTok was posted 4 years ago in 2022, the last YouTube video was posted 7 months ago, in June of 2025. So, nothing happened. The monster abusing these people in the videos was never punished. Trash streaming started to lose its popularity in 2022, which not coincidentally is when the TikTok video stopped. And then the creator just went about their life and moved on to making different things. But what happened to the victims? Well, years later, no one knows. Were there more deaths that we aren't aware of? Were they just abandoned or thrown out into the street? Discarded when they weren't needed anymore? I hope they got out and found a much better life. A peaceful life where they didn't need to stay up for days, forced to entertain an audience that pays to watch their agony. And hopefully, whoever is behind Geka 1202 Example Com 2 doesn't make another cent off those videos. And alright guys, that wraps up some horrifying internet mysteries, and yeah, these mysteries were horrifying. These were some of the most disturbing mysteries I have ever got into and some of the weirdest internet media I have ever seen. And yeah, please leave your thoughts down below. I read every single comment and I'm very curious to hear what you guys thought of this video. And comment down below and let me know if you'd like to see another installment in this series. This is a brand new series, so let me know if you'd like to see another one. And please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know. And if you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'll enjoy other videos on the channel. So go check out some other videos. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. It means the world. And this was Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye. YouTube is a place we all know and love. I mean, you're literally watching this video on YouTube right now, so you're familiar. And for most people, it's just a website. A place to watch videos, waste time, learn something new, or maybe fall asleep to one of my videos at 3 in the morning. But buried beneath millions of videos are channels that were never meant for entertainment. They were made for something far more horrifying. From a daredevil who built an audience by surviving the impossible until his luck finally ran out, to a channel so uncomfortable and disturbing that watching it feels illegal. Today, we're diving into some horrifying YouTube rabbit holes. And make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And let's get into it. Apator. When YouTube first hit the internet, people felt like they finally had the opportunity for all their home videos and vlogs to go somewhere that close friends and family could see. Everything was simple, sweet, and wholesome. And it was all done for the users themselves and for their loved ones. Not for views, clicks, or streams, but for the pure enjoyment of watching back their lives whenever they wanted to. Tor Eckhoff created a channel in the early years of YouTube that was a beautiful illustration of what the website was all about. He called it Apator, which was a name inspired by two things: his name and one of his biggest interests, apes. I say that to really show why Tor started making videos. For himself. Not for money, fame, or attention, but to create clips that made his ordinary life seem not so ordinary. It began with a video titled, "In My Boat." This is what Apator was all about. Real life. And over time, his videos maintained that same quality. But he also began to experiment more. Things got more quirky. Tor started to have some fun. One of the earlier ones like this was titled Chainsaw. He loved filming with chainsaws, but that was just one type of video he would create. What became more common were ones that had anything to do with ice. Ice skating, walking on ice, or even jumping into frozen lakes. Now, despite this channel having no intention of reaching success, that's exactly what this video brought Apator. Currently, this video has 5.4 million views, and it was only the start of a massive audience that Tor had attracted through his videos. An audience that was now asking, who was this man? And he says, "My name is Tor Eckhoff. I was born in 1964, living in Sandefjord, in Norway. I am a worker in a paint factory in Sandefjord. In my free time, I am doing stuff you can see here. The profile picture is taken in 1990. I dived into the bottom of a shallow lake. Got a few stitches. I am drinking real vodka in the videos." And that's another thing that he introduces in his later videos. Drinking. You can see it at the end of that last video, and he acts out his silly and sometimes crazy stunts. He has a bottle of vodka somewhere off camera, which he'll pull out and take a swig from every couple of clips. Some viewers assume this is to help fight the cold he feels from the water, or maybe it's just because he likes drinking. Either way, it becomes a staple of the videos. One of the things that people love about his channel. These are people that are becoming more than viewers. They're becoming dedicated fans. I never realized how much I needed a channel like Apator's. Another commenter says, whenever I'm having a bad day, I hop onto YouTube and watch Apator. Subscribed. And someone else says, when I grow up, I want to be like Apator. Tor hadn't planned on anyone watching his videos. He was just living his life, having fun, and filming for the hell of it. But people loved just that. In fact, they were obsessed. And all that attention gave him opportunities that he never believed were possible for him, like getting to see his videos be included in film festivals, as well as even landing a role in an actual movie. Apator was on top of the world, but all of that success came with a price. And for Tor, that price was danger. Because part of why the channel had gotten so successful was not only the quirkiness and fun nature of his personality, but also the stunts that he would perform. They were insane, to say the least. It wasn't every day that someone stumbled across a video of someone drilling 2 holes in a frozen lake and only using a flashlight as their guide to get out of the water and, not die. It wasn't just commenters or viewers that saw what he was doing as risky, but also people in real life. Bystanders who would just happen to come across Tor filming, and they would sometimes scold him for his reckless stunts, especially performing them without anyone around to make sure he was safe. His reaction was usually just to shrug them off. Many regard falling through ice as life-threatening, but if you know what you're doing and have ice claws, then it's usually fine. But then he paused and really thought about what he just said, about the word usually in that sentence. He adds one more thought. I shouldn't be cocky. I could very well die out here someday. His videos didn't seem like he really believed that. He uploaded often, every video being similar to the ones we've watched so far. Some of which seem crazy, but Tor was having the time of his life. And on November 22nd, 2021, when he celebrated his 57th birthday, he felt so content and happy to be alive that he uploaded a video titled, I'm Not Dead Yet. I am 57 today. It's the perfect day for Tor. Walking around with a drink in his hand, a bathtub full of dirty ice water, and a camera to film it all. It's clear how grateful he is to get to film his antics, and honestly, how happy he is to still be alive after all of it. Because even when he ignores all the comments on it, that title hints that maybe, just maybe, there was some part of him that knew it was a miracle he was still alive. Because up until November 26th, 2021, he was invincible. Until he wasn't. Until he found himself submerged in near frozen water, with no way out. He had planned this stunt like usual. He created an escape route and safety precautions, but they were all failing him. The one thing he didn't do, in fact, he never did, was bring someone along with him. So when he was crying out for help, only a bystander off in the distance heard him. And by the time that person got to him, it was too late. Despite the efforts of them, EMTs, and hospital staff, Tor Eckhoff was pronounced dead on November 27th. The internet was stunned. His audience was left speechless, and his fans were distraught. But his memory would live on forever, because while his death was tragic and heartbreaking, it was only because he had offered something so beautiful to the internet. He gave a piece of himself to his channel. Making videos was everything to him. And he got to die doing something that he loved. And because of that, his videos will live forever on YouTube. And in a way, he will live forever. It's somewhat haunting, but also peaceful to think about. Whenever anyone needs a video to cheer them up, they can type in Apator on YouTube, and it'll immediately bring a smile to their face. Rest in peace, Apator.
You don't really notice yourself getting older. You notice it in the people around you. One day they're full of energy, always working on something, always ready to go. Then little by little, they start saying things like, "I'm just tired all the time," or "I just don't feel like myself anymore." I'm only 19, so I haven't experienced that personally, but I started noticing it with my dad. He'd get through work, come home completely drained, and by the evening, he had nothing left in the tank. It wasn't that he was sick or anything, but he just felt like he was running on empty most days. Then he started taking Mars Men. Now, I'm not saying it's some magic pill or anything, but he keeps telling me how much better he feels. He says he's got more consistent energy throughout the day, he's actually looking forward to working out again, and he's ready to tackle the day instead of dragging himself through it. Honestly, seeing that change in him made me curious about what was actually in this stuff. So, I looked into it. One thing I learned is that as men get older, their bodies can still make testosterone, but a lot of it can become bound to something called SHBG, which makes it harder for the body to use. Mars Men is designed to help free up that locked testosterone using 8 natural ingredients like tonka ali, shilajit, vitamin D, zinc, boron, and more. All made in the USA and third-party tested. And what you see on screen is the actual bottle my dad's been taking, and he's been genuinely impressed with it. It's not like pounding an energy drink or coffee. He describes it as just feeling more like himself again. More motivated, more energetic, and ready to take on the day. And that's something I think a lot of you guys can relate to. For a limited time, you guys can get 50% off for life, plus free shipping and 3 free gifts at mengotomars.com. That's mengotomars.com for 50% off and 3 free gifts when you check out. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support my show and let them know I sent you. And now, let's get back into the video.
Sandra 3000 Cassie. In July of 2013, a young doctor would move to Kalamazoo, Michigan, to begin a residency at the Borgess Medical Center. Like anyone in the medical field, she had been studying for years and had put in the hours to achieve her dreams. This move was not only the beginning of a new chapter, but the end of an exhausting journey as a student. This was Talika Patrick. She was known as smart, kind, and a hardworking young woman. Anyone who met her felt that no one deserved the title of a doctor more, and that her patients would end up in great hands. They saw a bright future on her horizon. They saw a life filled with passion and success. What they didn't see was the turmoil boiling under the surface, the chaos, the side of her she had been hiding. On her YouTube channel, Sandra 3000 Cassie, that persona is there, and the mask is coming off. But all the people in her life would have been shocked to see it. Videos like these would have left them confused and alarmed.
Baby, good night. It's Talika. I am just coming to you to say hi and just to tell you about my day. I felt that. Put it up a little bit of fight. It's all.
This wasn't the Talika that everyone knew. This behavior was strange. She wasn't herself, and no one that knew her had any idea who this video was addressed to. Talika was an open book, and she shared information freely. The people around her felt that they knew what was going on in her life, but still, no one had heard anything about a boyfriend or anything like that. But the main problem with these videos is that despite the concern her family felt when watching them, they were just watching them a little too late. Because on December 5th, 2013, Only 5 months into the beginning of her career, her family shared their last words with Talika. They just didn't know it yet. The day began like normal for Talika. It was a work day at the hospital. She spent hours seeing patients and completing charts, but when her shift finished, she didn't return home like usual. She instead got a ride to the Radisson Plaza Hotel, where she tried to get a room but failed because she only had $100 on her in cash, which wasn't enough. Giving up on the room, she got on a hotel shuttle bus around 8 and returned back to the hospital where she had left her car. Even just going through the events myself, the details seem odd and erratic, and I'm not alone in feeling that way. The bus driver who took her back to Burgess Medical Center says that Talika seemed agitated. It felt like something was wrong. What was even more eerie was that as she walked through the parking lot, he saw her ducking in between cars. It was like she was hiding from something, like something was following her. But he thought to himself that maybe he had been making something out of nothing. He didn't know this woman. Maybe it wasn't as crazy as he felt like it was. It was just that, a feeling, which he let go. So she got off the bus, got back into her car, and left Kalamazoo. 2 hours passed by with no one having any idea where Talika was, or that she had gone anywhere at all. That changed when a driver on I-94 in Portage, Indiana, had been driving behind a gold Lexus around 10 p.m. A vehicle they didn't stay behind for very long, because whoever was behind the wheel had been driving insane, to say the least. Enough so that it warranted a call to state police to report them for reckless driving. 20 minutes later, law enforcement arrived at the mile marker that the call had been placed at. They did not see a car driving erratically, but found something much, much worse. It was the gold Lexus in a ditch. Immediately, it was searched, and what was found inside was the beginning of a mystery that would last months on end. Not only were clothes and some cash found inside, but the credit cards and driver's license of Talika Patrick were all found in the vehicle. Her entire life was in the car, but Talika herself, nowhere to be found. And it would take 4 long months for her to be seen again. But in a devastating conclusion to the story that began on that cold December day, she was not found alive. It was a fisherman on Lake Charles who discovered her body on April 6th. 3 days later, an autopsy confirmed it was the body of Talika, and the cause of death was ruled as drowning. Many people didn't feel like the case was solved though, that there were still so many unanswered questions, still so much justice that needed to happen for Talika and her family, so people returned to the YouTube channel. And it wasn't just the video that played earlier. She had uploaded a total of 9 videos in the span of a week. All of them were directed towards a romantic interest, someone who was never actually present in any of the videos. These clips don't give any clue as to what really happened on December 5th, but they paint a picture. And law enforcement began to ask themselves, if she had been posting bizarre videos like these, was there anything else in her digital footprint that could give them an answer as to what really happened? Well, there was. When cops dug a little more, they stumbled across a Twitter account. Well, actually, multiple Twitter accounts. Usernames like CaliGirl2013, Moses Beautiful, and Talika Patrick were all accounts that she was using. All of them followed the same kind of themes and had similar posts. It was like the videos. She wrote things out that were clearly meant for someone else, someone that she was in love with, someone she believed she was in a relationship with. Some examples from Cali Girl 2013 and Moses Beautiful from June and September of 2013 are this, quote, "I have just relocated to be with you. So I really hope you want me so we can be in love and get married and have a couple babies." And quote, "I'm tired of hoping and imagining. Please, baby, I want it to be real. This town is small as hell. Not much happens here. It's boring, and when I have free time, I get depressed and lonely." Then months pass, and she begins to use the account under her actual name. And on December 4th, she posts this, quote, "You reach me through a demonic portal that gives demons power over me and dilutes my spiritual authority. Please understand that I must protect myself spiritually." And one day later, on the day of her disappearance, and most likely her death, she writes this, quote, "I just activated tweet_delete on my account to automatically delete my old tweets." Then her posts were gone, and so was she. Now the police wanted to know, who was she talking to? They compiled all of the details from her videos, her Twitter, and information from friends and family, and discovered that everything added up to describe one man, Marvin Sapp. Marvin is a well-known musician and pastor who, not coincidentally, lives under an hour from Kalamazoo in Grand Rapids, Michigan. In August of 2013, he led his regular Sunday service at the church he and his wife founded, when he went into detail about a woman who had entered his home the night prior. She had not been invited, but entered anyway and talked to his 3 teenage children before being asked to leave. This was actually the last straw in a conflict that had been rising for months. It had finally come to an end when, after she came to his home, Marvin got lawyers involved and filed a restraining order, which was finalized on September 17th. In the process, he said there had been over 400 instances of this person trying to contact him, whether it through the mail, digitally, or in person. He had enough of her quite literally stalking him. This person was Talika Patrick. And when he cut ties with her is when her tweets, videos, and mental health started to spiral into something much darker. Quote, "Since coming out here and not being able to see you, I just fell into the D word. I'm not allowed to say it because of my job. And then when I got those letters in the mail, I really went down. I am certain that I was clinically D word. I was crying every day, and I could barely do anything. Even now, I am still struggling. I was like, oh, I'm going to break away from you so I can feel better. But actually, tweeting is the only thing that keeps me going because it allows me to reach out to you and lets me show you love. It's at this point that it's clear Talika is not well. She is in a fantasy, or possibly a psychotic break, that is feeding this delusion that she has a relationship with Marvin. It's pretty heartbreaking to watch her grieve something that was never there to begin with. And like we saw earlier, what she is struggling with gets so much worse. It transforms from depression and sadness to paranoia. She becomes concerned about demons. She even deactivates her Twitter account. It feels obvious that all of this is connected to her behavior on that last day she was seen. that it provides an explanation for what happened. Hiding behind cars, driving like someone is out to get her, and finally entering a near-frozen lake in the dead of winter. She had lost this battle she had been having with her own mind. But some people feel as if there's more to it, that it was actually a homicide. There are many petitions that go as far to request an investigation into Marvin Sapp and any possibility that he was actually behind all of this. To think of that as an explanation for all of this is chilling, to say the least. If it were true, that man would have to be genuinely evil, especially to paint her in such a way that everyone thinks she's crazy, and to chalk it up to mental illness. The sad truth, though, is that with the evidence we have, that's just the way it seems. Her internet profiles were of a young woman who was struggling. She was in the depths of an illness so great that when left untreated, it led to her untimely death. Whether or not it was foul play or simply just a heartbreaking story of someone who didn't get the help they need, the ending was devastating. We didn't get to see her career flourish or have the family and life she deserved.
Yes. Put it up a little bit of fight, it's alright.
American Reject 2012. The internet is full of creeps. That's no surprise. People that have no boundaries, no filters, and always take things too far. Even behind a screen, someone can very easily freak someone out. They'll send unsettling messages, get blocked, make a burner account, and then do it all again. It's like walking through a minefield trying to avoid these people. But even still, it feels shocking when it's right in front of your face. Not in the DMs or a follow request, but posted for everyone to see. Fully public, whenever anyone wants to watch. This is what I felt when I came across a channel called American Reject 2012. Created in 2010, the channel has about 70 videos that follow the same guy, who I discover is named Ray. The most popular video, titled Hot Blonde Part 1, is not a great first impression of him. He begins the video explaining that he has recently been pretending to be rich, and at the same time, trying to boost his confidence around women. His one way of doing that is by requesting tours of homes that are on sale. Homes that he has no intentions or means of buying. Which sure isn't too harmful. An open house is an open house, but like I said, he's killing two birds with one stone. He set this up so the tour is run by a real estate agent who is in fact the very, quote, hot blonde mentioned in the title. Someone that he feels he can use as practice for his social skills. And as soon as the video begins, it gets as uncomfortable as it sounds.
Oh, thank you. Nice to meet you. I'm just filming this for my wife.
Oh, right, okay.
Because I might need to, send this back to her in the States to show her, what kind of property, that we could perhaps live in.
Right,
so,
okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah, magnificent hair.
Oh, thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank
Beautiful.
you for the compliment.
No problem.
Right.
Immediately, this woman can tell that this isn't going to be a normal house tour. That doesn't mean she won't try and continue on like she normally would, but every time she does, Ray brings it back to an almost unbearable level of awkwardness.
Okay. Well, you've got the option. There was a wall here previously. So, if you wanted that peace and quiet, you could easily partition up to separate the two
So,
rooms.
are you married? You
Be married? Well, no, but I do have a boyfriend.
Oh, okay. So, it's this kind of place that, let's say if you were single,
Right.
you know, and is this the kind of place that you would like, you know, maybe like to come back to if you met a guy in a bar and you wanted to, you know, go back to his place? You'd be impressed with this place?
Well, it's all, you know, it's down to one's own taste, isn't it, really?
Personal
Ray?
taste.
Yeah.
Personal taste.
But I think it's a great start to home. Is it just for you and your wife?
Yeah, just me and
No children?
me and the missus.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, no, I got a son.
The video unfortunately goes on like that for a while. It's almost 10 minutes of exhausting secondhand embarrassment and sympathy for this poor woman who has to put up with him and the unhinged things that come out of his mouth. Towards the end, he finally admits that he was lying about the wife, and in reality, he wants to purchase the home for a bachelor pad, which is still a lie. That he takes even further with a story on why he and his made-up wife got divorced in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, me and my wife, we went through various problems, and you know, I was trying to spice things up in the bedroom, and I had like I got some like sexy photos taken of myself, like cuddling a snake, you know, to try and like spice things up in the bedroom department, and it didn't work. And,
the worst thing about this whole thing is that even though she cut him off multiple times and tried to bring the conversation to anything else other than what he was talking about, he never gets the hint. In fact, he goes as far to ask her for a ride back to her office. Of course, she says no, but maybe out of people-pleasing, she does agree to give him a ride back near the office. The safe option, but still, she has to put up with this guy for longer than she would need to. And doing so only leads to another video on the channel called Hot Blonde Part 2. Here, viewers get to watch an even more uncomfortable interaction between her and Ray. They get in her car, and at first he begins to make small talk about the house and neighborhood they just looked at. But he's really just stalling, despite the fact that she stated she has a boyfriend and gave no signs of being interested in him. He continues to try and make a move on her. He plays it off at first like an apology for coming on too strong, but then goes right into literally asking her out. It's astounding. Unbelievable how little respect he has for this woman, who is clearly so uncomfortable. And no matter how many times she says no, he still doesn't get the hint.
No problem.
Cool. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
for
nice to meet you.
And you.
Well, just gonna give you I was just gonna give you a business a double kiss.
Oh,
you know the double.
I'm quite shy.
You're quite shy.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what is that anyway with the whole double kiss? You know, do you give 3 kisses? You know, is that too many? I don't know. Sometimes I give 3 or 4. You know. So.
Right. Okay. Well, shaking hands good enough, I'm sure.
Okay. Well, thanks again.
You're very welcome.
Pleasure to meet you.
And you.
And
The most infuriating part about this whole thing is that he finishes the video by getting out of the car, telling the camera that he's going to think about what he did wrong. And then, lo and behold, he does not do that, because there's a part 3. And in part 3, he goes over his new plan, which he has been devising for a year. A whole year. What he came up with was to have a friend call her real estate company, ask to see a house, and then he would show up instead and try to ask her out again. Luckily, or maybe on purpose, this friend of his makes a mistake and accidentally says the name Ray when requesting the showing. Although he quickly corrected and said his own name like Ray had requested he do, I think she caught on, because when he arrived at the location, someone else was there to greet him. It was a man, someone who explained that the woman he was looking for, his coworker, had been too busy and he would show him the house instead. Ray seemed to believe him, even though he was extremely disappointed his plan didn't work out. But as their conversation went on, Ray got the impression that she wasn't so busy after all. She just didn't want to be alone with him again. Because this wasn't just a coworker. It was actually her brother, her older brother, who made it clear he knew exactly who Ray was and had no intention of letting him near his sister again.
Yeah, she needs someone there to take care of her as well, you know? So it's nice to work together.
Does her boyfriend not?
Well, he doesn't work with her, does he? Really?
Oh,
so
okay.
Yeah, he can't be there.
Yeah.
So we work together and also I can take care of her, you know, which is the right thing to do, really, with your little sister.
I guess so, yeah. Okay, well, cool.
These people aren't the only ones made uncomfortable by Ray, though. Like I said, his channel has around 70 videos, each one more unsettling and frustrating than the last. The worst part is that no matter how much I watch, it never seems like Ray really understands that his behavior is wrong. Even when his comments are filled with concern and criticism, like people saying, this transcends cringe and crosses over into pure dread. And this is straight out of a nightmare for anyone. And also, you came straight from every girl's nightmare. Or even when the people he approaches outright tell him he's suspicious and to leave them alone. Like in one vlog where he visits a museum, which he spends most of the video doing commentary on the statues that's ultimately just stupid and irrelevant. He doesn't have any actual opinion on the artwork. He really just creates things to talk about that give him an excuse to talk to strangers, so he can make them as uncomfortable as possible. One young woman stands up for herself after a couple of long minutes of him talking to her and her friend, and asks him to stop filming her. Immediately, he's passive-aggressive about her very simple request. And even though he does stop filming her, his reaction is still insane.
Sorry. Oh, you want me to leave?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, bye.
Bye.
You're not very friendly, though. I mean, you should work on that, you know, if you want to.
Yeah,
I know you're only young, and, you know, you have every right to be suspicious of me because...
I'm not really that young.
Oh, okay, well, but you're... Okay.
I'm just suspicious. So
You're what?
I'm just suspicious. So
Okay. Cool. Okay, well, have a nice day, yeah. And life. Okay.
It's yet just another example of the kind of videos on American Reject 2012, and the kind of person Ray is, which is clearly an unwell and misogynistic creep. But not everyone thinks so, because actually, the original channel has since been abandoned and taken down. But a fan of his kept all his videos and created their own page where they could keep all of his work. It's described as, quote, "This is a fan archive channel of the legendary American Reject 2012. I have no idea what happened to him or why his videos went down. But this website is a hollow shell without them on here. Ray, if you're even alive and you want me to take these down, please just let me know." And for an even further description, they gave this response when asked who exactly Ray was. Quote, "He was an engineer, a politician, a doctor, a philanthropist. He was the last cowboy and the end of a line of great Americans. And for all of this, he was exiled. Perhaps it was jealousy, perhaps it was fear, who knows? But he was rejected by America and left to write a new legend in the old world. This channel is an archive of his chronicles." I don't know what's more disturbing, Ray or his fans. It's terrifying to think that there are people who have watched his videos and thought, that's a great American. No. He was just a guy who made women scared. Like some of his YouTube comments said, he was a living nightmare in the form of a human. Every video is proof that he was someone who went out of his way to freak people out. And whether it's because he lacks social awareness, thinks it's funny, or is just a disturbing person, the whole thing feels sickening to watch. His last video was uploaded in 2019, which is another hard watch. Instead of awkward though, this one is more sad. Not that there's a lot of room for empathy with someone like Ray, but it is difficult to watch this as it's just 5 minutes of him spiraling and falling apart. It begins with him talking about Jimmy Savile, a well-known British DJ with a history of crimes against minors. But then it cuts right to him driving a van and updating his viewers on his life. He says he had to get a job as a delivery driver, something he's clearly not happy about. Multiple times he curses out other drivers and even the automated GPS voice. He honestly seems like a different person, but not for the better. He still seems unwell, but in a more depressed way. He just looks miserable. Like he's lost all the energy he had to go out and harass people trying to live their normal lives. But what's bizarre is how all over the place the video is. There's a couple of minutes of him driving, and then it goes right back to where he was before, sitting in a room talking about Jimmy Savile. But not just him. He also talks about a janitor that he knew as a kid, someone who did the same things that Jimmy did, and among those awful things, he was also a gay man who did some horrible activities that Ray feels the need to go into explicit detail into. It's hard to tell what the point of it is, but it's so unsettling. The way he talks about these people, how he says others think he looks like he could be one of them because of his creepy looking mustache. It is all just eerie. And Ray is just a bizarre person, which he obviously is from the outro of the video. And then that's it. No more of American Reject 2012. It's quite an abrupt ending, but I can't say I'm not happy to see the channel inactive and taken down. There's theories of what happened to him, that he committed S-word, but nothing is proven. He seemed to have gotten more and more unwell since the first videos he posted. So that supports the theory that he committed S-word. Hopefully that wasn't the case though. Hopefully he realized that the way he had been acting was insane, inappropriate, and wrong. Hopefully he stopped making videos because he stopped talking to women like that altogether. Or maybe he's still out there, just finding new ways to create those situations without a camera. And alright guys, that wraps up some horrifying YouTube rabbit holes. Please let me know your guys' thoughts on this down below. I read every single comment, so please comment down below and make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really does mean the world, and thank you guys so much for watching. From the bottom of my heart, it truly does mean the world. And yeah, like I said, thank you guys so much for watching, and this was Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye.